Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of Monday, October 23rd, 2023. I now call the meeting to order and I will ask Commissioner Rojas to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Raise your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Rojas. Anna, if we could do voice roll call, please.
Chair Arith,
Present.
Vice Chair Toller,
Here.
Commissioner Rojas,
Present.
Commissioner Zick,
Here.
Commissioner Andrade,
Here.
Commissioner Klepak,
Present.
Commissioner Vivar.
Present.
All right, thanks, Anna. I appreciate it. I see no announcements or presentations this evening, which brings us to public comments. So for the public, these are for matters that are not listed on tonight's agenda. Public comments will be heard at this time that are within our jurisdiction. I'll now open up the public comment. If you'd like to speak, please come to either podium. You'll have 3 minutes, and at the 1 minute mark, you'll hear the chime. And for those of you out in Zoom world and on telephone, you can press *9 as well. So if you'd like to speak, come forward, starting with Ms. Simone.
Hi, my name is Wendy Simo. I'm here about the Gym 12 at 140 East 17th Street. So these are my Sony M4 headphones. I wear these every night for 4 hours whenever I get home now because they're screaming from the gym that comes out of the door. And I've sent you guys all pictures of them, how they have every single door open on the gym. Does this gym have air conditioning, or is air conditioning required in gyms where you work out, you know, and you can pass out, you know, bad stuff can happen if you don't have proper circulation in a gym, 100%. I've called the fire people about the door that they just prop open and put a fan in front of every single day that absolutely nothing is being done about. I call up to the city almost every day, and I'm not going to anymore because nobody wants to talk to me, you know? So I don't understand why to live in my community, you're required to wear headphones because somebody's screaming out of their gym on a microphone, amplified. It's coming from this direction, just all the way around you, you know? And then, so I don't understand why a homeless person gets arrested for screaming on the street, right? But yet it's allowed from this gym every single day, and nothing, you know, there's some sound, something, you know, but they already did that. And I also want to bring up that none of your code enforcement is required to wear, you know, surveillance, you know, the things that can keep them safe. They're not required to wear it, and they're not required to turn it on while doing their investigations. Body cam footage, that's what it is. They're not required to wear it or turn it on while doing their investigations. That should be also looked at probably because it's 2023 and just their word shouldn't go on a report. You know what I mean? So I'm just asking if we could do something about the gym that just protrudes their workouts into our community every day. They open their door at like 8 a.m. If you're sick for the day, no, don't open your windows because you got to hear the instructor screaming at noon, 1 o'clock because they're the 12 and they have a 1992 CUP that doesn't limit them on anything. So they do what they want. Have a great night.
Thank you, Ms. Smo. Does anyone else in chambers wish to speak on items that are not listed on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none. Anna, do we have anyone on telephone or Zoom?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. This brings us to Planning Commissioner comments and suggestions, starting with Commissioner Klepak.
I would just encourage people to get engaged with the Fairview Developmental Center specific plan meetings that are coming up. The English meeting is next Thursday night at the Senior Center. There's also a virtual option on Monday, November 6th in the evening. That's all for me.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Vivar.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone here tonight, and Ms. Samo, thank you for sharing your concerns with us again. I guess I want to echo Commissioner Zick's comments to a meeting ago. If we're able to, after making a determination on the evidence of the gym, if it merits a CUP hearing, then I think that is called for. 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 I think that is c And I would like to also say that I had the privilege of attending a sneak peek of the Northgate markets that are going to be opening next month in in November, I believe it is. And so it was a great opportunity to see some of the work that we've been doing up here and public hearings and seeing what that looks like in basically coming to fruition. So as a commissioner and public servant, I always value the opportunity to get to see something that I've looked at on paper in real life in 3D. So great opportunity to go and see that development. And yeah, always appreciated the opportunity to yeah, get to interact with new businesses, especially large chains like grocery chains like such as this one that have never opened in Costa Mesa, and getting a sneak peek at the work they're doing. So thank you, and that's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Commissioner Rojas?
I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Zick?
I'd like to thank Commissioner Vivar for his support of my interest in solving what is a very simple physical problem. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zick. Commissioner Andrade?
I'll chime in and echo some of the announcements already made. Yes, also got a chance to do the sneak peek at Mercado Northgate, which is pretty impressive. So super excited for that to open up. Not only from a commissioner perspective, but just as a local West Side resident, it's going to be such a wonderful experience for all of us. I'm really looking forward to that. And yes, similarly, I'll echo the commission this opportunity to join the Fairview Planning, the Fairview Development opportunity to really provide feedback that's happening on the 2nd, 6 to 8. Again, it's really important for us to show up. The community, anyone interested in affordability and housing in our community, this is the time to make your voices heard and make it loud and clear to the powers that be that this little, or this space that we have really should be focused and invested for the Costa Mesa community. So prioritizing that in this conversation is absolutely critical. So I highly encourage everyone Spanish speaking, and inglés en español, aparezcanse todos. And then finally, I also want to share this great advocacy and educational opportunity that is coming out from an initiative here in our community called United to End Homelessness. It is Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week, all the way November 1st through the 18th, and they're hosting a variety of virtual and in-person coffee chats, educational sessions to really just talk about the economics and affordability of homelessness. The very first one happening on the 8th at 12 o'clock, completely online, so you can join in from your phone, is addressing the relationships between affordability and homelessness and challenge assumptions that limit our ability to find solutions for the entire community. There's a lot of great misconceptions that will be breakthrough in these conversations, so I invite everybody to check out that website, unitedtoendhomelessness.org.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for telling us about that. That sounds like a good meeting coming up to attend. Also, another advocacy group out there is called Strong Towns, which I mentioned before. Strong Towns has been around about 10 years maybe, and they're really a media company. They're trying to equip cities to become more financially resilient. That's why they call themselves Strong Towns. And the way they describe their mission is to come up with rational responses to the challenges that have been created by, quote unquote, the suburban experiment, this thing we've done for the last 70 years or so, where we plan our cities so that everybody drives everywhere for everything, and we have big swaths of single-use areas. So they're a really cool group. Quick story, Charles Marone, the founder of this, reached out to the Costa Mesa Alliance for Better Streets. Just a couple weeks ago, he said, hey, I'm going to be in town if you guys want to do something. And in just a few days, we pulled it off. We found a venue at the last minute, and 75 people showed up, so we packed the house. And so two interesting things. One, why did he reach out? He was in Southern California. He reached out to Costa Mesa. He wanted to come to Costa Mesa because he knows we're doing things. We're doing things right. We have momentum here in the right direction. Second thing, who wants to go to a meeting about this stuff on a Tuesday night, like another meeting? But still, a lot of people went because we're interested in figuring out how to make our streets safer and to allow more housing and to just do city making better than we've been doing the last few decades. So I encourage everybody to check that out, strongtowns.org. They have a lot of good information. That's it.
All right. Thanks, Vice Chair. I'll pick up where you left off in saying that the first time Chuck Marone came to town, at least that I was aware of, was, I think, last year, and we met at the Norma Herzog. We had some really kind members in our active transportation committee or community, I should say, who provided books to us. So I had the opportunity to read Chuck Marone's Strong Towns book, and I found it extremely fascinating and gave me a lot to think about in terms of active transportation, traffic, vehicular traffic, mixed use, and so forth. So I would support that. I can't dedicate my every other Tuesday because I'm usually at City Council because that's where my priorities are, but you do have my support on Strong Towns. I too went to the Northgate Market sneak peek. It was a blast. There were, I think about 20 of us, 25 of us from the city that went. It was one of the most incredible experiences I've had in Costa Mesa, and it wasn't even finished. It was wall-to-wall murals celebrating Latino culture and food, and I can't even begin to imagine what it's going to be when it's all done. So I think the owner, Joshua Gonzalez, said that I think they're opening up in about 4 weeks. So keep looking out for when they open up because I'd highly recommend it. I'm totally looking forward to it myself. Like most mornings, I'm also in Fairview Park doing my walking, and if I feel really good, jogging. And I noticed that over the last week, I believe it was Banning Ranch and Banning Ranch Conservancy in the city of Costa Mesa teamed up to cordon off some new acreage to do native plant reforesting right there at the entry to the park, and it looks fantastic. I must have seen a couple hundred new native plants that are right there, so I'm looking forward to seeing that come up in 2024. I'll also mention, what was it, about a week and a half ago, I joined Trellis for one of their new events called the Neighboring Initiative, where they're getting people together who have a real heart for community service to help those who can't really help themselves and to just be of general service to the community here in Costa Mesa. Basically, an experience of people who are in this field sharing their experiences and how best to love your neighbor. I'll say that I think the keynote speaker, Arliss Reynolds, our council member, did a fantastic job. She was very, very funny. And I would highly suggest going to these meetings as they come up. So if you have any questions, you can look into Trellis if you'd like to join something like that. And with that, I think I will ask staff before we move along. On the topic of the 12 gym, Director Dropkin, do we have any updates on the sound engineer? Has he or she launched those data collection points yet?
They've been contracted, and I don't know what the current status of it is. I'm just waiting for the return summary.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been brought up at council a couple of times as well.
Okay.
So they're dealing with it as well. So it's probably not so appropriate at this point for the commission to sort of chime in until the council gets their way.
Okay, sounds good. I will say that I think we're all interested in seeing those data. I will say that up to this point, I have looked through all the evidence and I see no evidence of a violation. If the noise returns come back and show that there's something in there, then we can consider it, but I don't think we need to proactively vet it publicly. I think we need to look at those data first and then decide what to do from there. So I do not support bringing it in front of this committee before then. Okay, thank you. So that brings us to our consent calendar. And I see we have 2 consent calendar items tonight. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the Planning Commission staff or the public request specific items to be discussed and/or removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Items removed from the consent calendar will be discussed and voted upon immediately following Planning Commission action on the remainder of the consent calendar. So Anna, if you would please read the titles of those consent calendar items, please.
October 9th, 2023, unofficial meeting minutes. June 13th, 2022, unofficial meeting minutes.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any comments on the meeting minutes? Commissioner Vivar.
Yeah, I don't remember which item or which minutes page it was, but I did see a minor error that I wish I would have pointed out earlier. I just read this at the very end here, it was a vote in which myself and another commissioner, I believe, voted no on an item, but the balance reflected 7-0 rather than 5-2. So that's just a minor error I've caught. But other than that, everything, in my opinion, was great.
That's a good observation. I didn't even catch that, Commissioner Vivar. Let's take a quick look if we need to.
It was the last item on one of those 2 minutes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Director Dropkin, do we have it?
Yeah, it's on, it's page 9 of the June 13th,
Okay.
and it's the top of the page where it said motion carried 7-0, and there was Arith and Vivar, and it was a nay.
Okay.
So
All right.
make sure we fix that.
Yes, we have voted together before. So, with that said, Commissioners, any other comments on the minutes? All right. Can I have a motion, please? Motion made by Commissioner Vivar. What is your motion?
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with that minor edit.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chair Toller. Would you like to speak to your motion, Commissioner Vivar?
No, sir, nothing.
All right. Vice Chair?
No.
All right. Anna, you can call it up, please.
That motion carries 7-0.
All right. Thank you very much. That brings us to public hearing item number 1. And if you would, please read it into the record.
Public hearing item number 1, planning application 23-10 for a retail cannabis non-storefront and cannabis distribution facility, Gipsel Cannabis, located at 3505 Cadillac Avenue, Unit 0105. Please note we have not received any public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
All right. Thank you, Anna. Commissioner Rojas?
I have none.
Commissioner Zick? Commissioner Andrade? Vice Chair? No, and me neither. All right. So I'll now turn it over to Mr. Villalobos to present the item.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Gabriel Villalobos, and I am an Assistant Planner with the Development Services Department. Tonight, I am presenting Planning Application 23-10, which is a request for a conditional use permit to establish a new Measure X project for a cannabis non-volatile manufacturing and distribution business within the designated green zone area of the city of Costa Mesa. The proposed business would be required to obtain both a state license Type 6 for the proposed manufacturing use and a Type 11 license for the distribution use. There is no retail component for this application, and the proposed business name is Gipsel Cannabis. As of today, the applicant has successfully completed the initial application steps of the entitlement process for a new cannabis business in the city of Costa Mesa. If the CUP application is approved tonight, the applicant must next go through the building permit approval and inspections phase prior to the issuance of a cannabis business permit and city business license. Only after the CBP has been issued will the cannabis business be allowed to operate in the city. The project site is located at 3505 Cadillac Avenue, Unit 0105, which is outlined in red on the slide above. Existing development on the property includes 15 industrial office buildings located on a 14-acre 14-acre property, otherwise known as Cambridge Park. The project site is bordered by the 405 freeway to the south and the Santa Ana River to the west, with other industrial developments located to the north and east. The project site is located on the first floor of Building O within Suite 105, and the first floor suite is approximately 2,590 square feet and shares no facilities with any other tenant in the building. The surface parking lot and landscaping are all existing, and the site includes a total of 648 shared parking stalls throughout the development. The subject property is zoned PDI, or Planned Development Industrial, and as shown in the slide above in dark blue, is surrounded by other similarly zoned properties in a predominantly industrial area. The subject property also holds the land use designation of Industrial Park, which is intended to contain a variety of industrial and compatible office and commercial uses. Shown here are some site photos taken from my site visit on September 8th. Photo 1 shows the area labeled as Manufacturing Premises 2 on the project plans. This area would be utilized to help prepare cannabis products manufactured on site. Photo 2 shows the type of air filters that would be used for odor mitigation purposes. Photo 3 shows the area labeled as Distribution Premises 1 on the project plans, which is a primary location where shipments will be processed for distribution purposes. The last photo shows an enclosed storage area where finished cannabis products would be stored. The project scope of work is focused on establishing a licensed premises for both distribution and manufacturing in a secured space that meets all requirements as set forth by city and state. The applicant would be obtaining a Type 6 non-volatile manufacturing license and a Type 11 distribution license from the state. The Type 6 license would allow for the use of non-volatile solvents for extraction or post-extraction processing of cannabis. But in this case, the applicant only proposes to produce cannabis pre-rolls, which do not require any extraction whatsoever and are typically produced by hand or by using automated equipment. In addition, the Type 11 license would allow for finished products to be packaged and labeled on-site as a white label service offered by the business, as well as the storage and distribution of cannabis and cannabis products between licensed retailers, cultivators, and manufacturers. The business will utilize one distribution vehicle and will have one dedicated driver to support the distribution activities, and there will be minor tenant improvements made to the premises, which include the installation of security features such as cameras, locks, and storage for the new cannabis facility. In addition, odor control measures will also be implemented in the form of freestanding plug-in carbon air filters for both the manufacturing and distribution rooms. The odor control features will not be connected to the existing HVAC system in the suite. No exterior modifications other than exterior security cameras covering the path of travel to the parking area will be included as part of this project. Shown here is a site plan for the project site. As mentioned previously, the site is composed of several multi-tenant industrial buildings. The building in which the project is to be located is one developed to accommodate industrial and office uses and currently includes 7 separate cannabis facilities. Landscaping, surface parking, and a trash enclosure are all existing, and the path of travel from the front entrance to the designated parking area will be under camera. There are no proposed changes to the site included in the scope of work for this project. Unit 105 is broken down into 3 primary areas. The area in yellow is roughly 812 square feet and contains the distribution premises, which will be primarily used for the preparation and packaging of finished cannabis products for distribution to other licensed cannabis businesses. These areas are all limited access and are intended to only be accessed by employees of the proposed cannabis business. The area in blue is approximately 1,052 square feet and houses the manufacturing portion of this cannabis facility. All manufacturing use activities will be located in this area, including all equipment and tools used in the manufacturing process. Both manufacturing and distribution uses will each have their own dedicated storage space as well. Lastly, the area in blue will comprise the remainder of the facility and is roughly 536 square feet of common area, not included as part of the licensed areas for either distribution or manufacturing. This area includes a front entrance that leads out to the dedicated loading area, as well as an employee break room and office space for the proposed business. Shown above are flow diagram exhibits showing the path of travel in and out of the proposed cannabis facility for distribution. All products brought into the facility will be triaged in a common area and parceled out to be brought either into the manufacturing license area or distribution area. Raw cannabis product will be mainly transitioned into the manufacturing storage area for further processing into finished cannabis goods, while finished products will be brought into the distribution license premises for labeling and final packaging for certain products utilizing the white label service offered. All products are tracked into and out of the facility, and the pathways used for product movement are monitored under camera. In addition, the project has also been conditioned to secure product in locked containers when being moved outside to the loading area for an added layer of security. The next couple of slides will provide some examples of the conditions of approval that are recommended in the draft resolution that are applicable to cannabis-related projects. This slide provides examples of general conditions of approval, including the ability to revoke the approved entitlement, the requirement to renew the cannabis business permit every 2 years, the process for reviewing and approving any changes in operation, the process for modifying the cannabis business permit with changes in ownership of at least 51%, establishing record keeping and payments of tax remittance to the city, and submitting to the city auditing and no notice inspections. Conditions of approval have also been included that are related to the ongoing operation of the use, including a background check and issuance of ID badges, quarterly employee roster and vehicle list updates, vehicle loading, unloading required to be within camera view, no cannabis products or cannabis graphics shall be visible from the exterior, cannabis waste made unusable and disposed of at an appropriate facility, and maintaining air quality control and odor control devices throughout the facility, in addition to restrictions on the hours of distribution. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act per CEQA Guidelines Section 15301, existing facilities, and approve planning application 23-10, subject to the conditions of approval. This concludes staff presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Villalobos. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Commissioner Vivar.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Villalobos. So just one quick question. In the staff report, there was something about there being limited customer access allowed to this facility. So by customer access, would that be referring to, say, like cannabis retail owners that wish to stop by to look at the options they have, or is that just?
So customers is probably more of a generic term. Essentially, there won't be any sort of retail component to this whatsoever. So there shouldn't be any I guess, prospective business clients perusing the site or taking a look at the product. For the most part, that's all pre-scheduled, and the only visitors to the site that are not badged employees will be anyone required for maintenance purposes or for third-party distributors who stop by to either unload product or pick up product from the facility.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, a cannabis retail store owner that wishes to do business with this facility would do that over the phone or internet, right? They wouldn't go on site.
Yeah, I would imagine so, and I would probably defer to the owner to better answer that question. But for the most part, I would imagine that that type of business is handled remotely.
Okay, that's it for Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Villalobos.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Anyone else? All right, I have a couple questions, and thanks again for the presentation. It was fantastic. If we can turn to conditions of approval, page 10 and 11, starting with page 10. I don't know if I've ever asked this question before, even though the language has carried through multiple iterations of Q and X, but 29B, the owner-operator shall maintain a current register of the names and contact information, so on and so forth. The register required for this condition shall be provided to the city manager upon reasonable request. I don't think I've ever asked, is this information publicly available for ownership?
I don't believe the information is publicly available, but during the process before the CBP is issued, planning staff usually does request an employee roster that we keep in our private records.
Okay.
So we use that. In addition, code enforcement should also have a list of all employees that have gone through the live scan and background checks and have had employee badges issued by the city.
Sure. Yeah, and I just didn't know if that information was publicly available.
I
But
don't
it sounds
believe
like
so.
no.
No.
Okay, thanks, Gabe. And then page 11, number 33, there shall be no storage or use of volatile solvents or hazardous materials at this facility. I take that to mean also cleaning supplies as well, or are we talking like actual commercial grade solvents?
I believe this is only in reference to commercial grade solvents. So specifically for the license type being requested, it's strictly non-volatile. So certain cannabis products that are manufactured require the use of certain chemicals such as butane,
yeah.
stuff like that. So this is strictly going to be just essentially rolling joints. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it should be fairly straightforward.
Okay.
There shouldn't be any sort of hazardous chemicals stored on site.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Villalobos. I think that's it for me. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Andrade.
Yeah, I had just to clarify also for, members of the public, this is not a delivery location. It's purely manufactured. They're going to receive product, process it, and then sell it to other distributors.
Correct, yes, that's what the Type 11 license strictly only allows for the movement of product between other licensed cannabis businesses, which would include cultivators, manufacturers, as well as retailers, but no direct retail to members of the public, unless they were to come back and amend the CUP to request that specific use.
Yeah. And maybe this is a question for the applicant, but the white label service, what exactly did that mean?
So essentially what it means is that the brand Gipsel Cannabis will have already pre-packaged cannabis goods that are essentially quasi-finished, but they come with a white label. So essentially a service that they offer is that they allow other businesses, or on behalf of other businesses, they'll pre-package or package and label certain cannabis goods using their brands and their stickers and things like that, and we'll distribute it on their behalf.
And so the revenue making opportunity for the city is that point of sale between Gipsel and the second distributor, right? Would that be the kind of revenue making opportunity for us?
I'd hope so. I think that might be a better question for the applicant.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I guess, and I don't know if that's would be also like these, I guess, second or third party distributors. I guess that's not necessarily anything part of our CUP process to be made aware, like who are these, like what kind of clients are we actually serving here out of the city of Costa Mesa?
Not necessarily out of the city, but all I guess transactions are required to be tracked, and that's more of a state requirement that all businesses conducted with other licensed retailers. So for any third-party distributors that interact with this CUP specifically that we're hearing tonight, they would each be required to have their own independent licensing and things of that nature.
So that kind of opens me up to a second question then. Are we kind of held to any standard as the approving city for this distributor to ensure that it's being sold to a licensed provider? Like how would we be, you know what I mean? I don't know if we were kind of liability loophole there.
So yeah, that actually is an excellent question. We are held to a standard, so to speak. Staff does have access to the track and trace system that the state operates. So we are completely informed and are plugged in, so to speak, with the trafficking of these goods, and we can watch them. Yeah, we just got access. That's why I'm bringing it up within the last couple of weeks. So now staff does, and also the police and any other department that needs access to those that information can track and trace all of the processes.
So this is a new feature, kind of a new
It's a feature that was available, but we've just recently, more or less.
Is this our first applicant that is
No,
taking this opportunity?
no. We've got full access regardless of the applicant. So, and before that, we had access to just contact the state. We could find out. But now we actually have real access through our computer. So.
I see. So we have a method, we have our own sort of internal access to verify that all sales are made to a legal and licensed
Correct.
distributor.
Right.
This is going between distributors now.
Correct.
And what's the, I don't know, the frequency, like what's the process of that? Like do we, I don't know, or is that, or is this something that is handled then by police, or like what would be the process? If you, maybe just again for clarity for myself and the audience.
Yeah, no, that's a good question also. I'm aware that the police have been involved in at least a couple research items where there's been complaints or concerns or what have you, and been able to more or less figure out what products have come and gone and their license type and what they should and should not be doing. So, yeah.
Do you have an opportunity to elaborate on what kind of concerns or flags have been? Or is...
No.
Okay. It's a case-by-case situation. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner Andrade. All right, Commissioner Zick.
I'd like to follow up on Commissioner Andrade's question. The requirement for them to transact business with only other licensed cannabis businesses, is that a requirement that is a part of their state license? In other words, is that the authority where that requirement comes from?
Yes.
Okay, it's not a city requirement, it's a state requirement. We simply have the ability to look over their shoulder, to look over the state's shoulder to make sure the state is ensuring they're doing the job according to the law. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Commissioner Zick. Anyone else? All right, seeing none. All right. Thank you, Director Drapkin and Mr. Villalobos. Appreciate it. I will now open up the public hearing and ask the applicant or the applicant's representatives to come forward. Thank you. Yes, either one's fine, sir. Thank you. And if you would, please state your name for the record. Let us know if you've read the staff report and the conditions of approval, and do you agree to them?
Yes, my name is Eric Gibson. I have read both reports and I have them here with me now, and I do agree to them.
Okay, thank you, sir. The floor is yours if you'd like to make a presentation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so again, I'm Eric Gibson. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for taking the time this evening to listen to my presentation. Again, as stated earlier by Gabriel, I'd like to start a cannabis business. I'm the sole owner of this business currently. I don't have any plans to add any other business partners or anything like that. To address some of the questions that you had regarding the track and trace system, the state is the regulating agency on that. It's called Metric. I don't know if you guys have heard of that track and trace system before. And that's how all the product is traced. Every single item is given a unique identifying number. All of these things are tagged, they're stored. Prior to sales, these items have to be tested. If there was any change between the product, for example, if I purchase from another distributor a bag of cannabis that I'd like to grind up and put into a pre-roll, I then have to assign a new unique identifying number to that batch. So that's how that kind of works with the tracking and the tracing. In addition to that, you spoke about white labeling. Maybe that term's not familiar, but it's a very common practice in the cannabis industry. Most distributors that I know or have spoken to regularly practice this. They package cannabis for other companies, be it a dispensary, be it another distributor, etc. All licensed, all traced, all tracked, and that's kind of how that's handled regularly. So There's really not anything out of the norm that I'm doing here in this business. I've kept it kind of simple and to the basics. The pre-roll industry doesn't involve chemicals, doesn't involve all the extraction, the dangers that are involved in that. It's a very straightforward operation that can be handled by a smaller number of employees that I plan on facilitating. If there's any other questions, I'm here to answer them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gibson. Commissioners, Commissioner Zick.
Mr. Gibson, I've got just one question for you. In terms of your building, business identification signage, or maybe the wayfinding monument signage, what business identification name are you intending to use for that?
I don't have any signage on the exterior currently. I'm probably only going to use either, there's a small board in front of the building, like a directory in front of my specific unit. I might put some signage on there, but if I do it on the outside, it's either going to be Gipsol Cannabis or just Gipsol LLC.
I see. So are you familiar with the condition of approval number 7?
Yes, where you're not supposed to use cannabis. So
tell me
it'll be
again
Gipsol
the name
LLC.
that's going to be on your sign?
Gipsol LLC.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry about that.
Is that all, Commissioner? Thank you. All right, Commissioner Vivar.
Yeah, Mr. Gibson, just one quick question. So would you very briefly explain how you would plan to do business with either other cannabis distributors or cannabis retailers, and how you would interface between them, and what products they choose to purchase from you?
Okay. A lot of that is done remotely, like was discussed earlier, via reaching out, telephonic contacts, marketing, essentially, reaching out to different dispensaries, different distributors. Everybody has their own sort of way of doing business. So some distributors need products made for their purposes. And additionally, a lot of dispensaries like products made as well. Distributors will make pre-rolls, as discussed earlier, or other packaged products for licensed retailers and distributors. So essentially, just traditional sales, trying to reach out to companies, establish business contacts, and sales, and then invoice those sales, and then just go through all the proper channels.
All right, so no customer would access your site then, correct?
No. There's no consumer, retail customers coming in. Anyone accessing my site will be a licensed distributor.
So but I mean, if a licensed distributor wants to check out your product, they would come on site to look, and then you would kind of show them what you do, basically, right?
There's an option for that. That's a pretty common practice as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sign-in, sign-out sheet, and I'll use that to pretty much track any visitors if there are. But the amount of visitors is going to be very minimum in the facility.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be like a dispensary where you have customers coming in.
Right. Okay, that's it, Mr. Gibson. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Anyone else? Commissioner Andrade.
Mr. Gibson, if I understand, kind of process what you shared a little bit, right? So you'll have your own website and reaching out, right, to other distributors to help get the word out about your product. Do you have any kind of targets or goals? I mean, as you probably know, we're a bustling distributor of. Do you have any local partners already that you're looking to engage?
There are other distributors that I've spoken with that I am looking to engage. Essentially, I think I'm going to start with the new retail centers that you guys have here in Costa Mesa. I feel like they're probably in need of some products. I have some pretty innovative products. I'm sure a lot of people have said that, but I'd like to bring them to the market, and specifically Costa Mesa is going to be one of my areas of marketing to start. I'm a small company. I'm a new company. I do know people in the industry. I do have people that can assist me in that process, so to speak. But it's basically a ground-up business starting. So I'm gonna, go out there and get clients,
Awesome.
essentially.
So as of now, it's a one-man show.
Well, for now it
yeah.
is, because
Right.
there's really no reason for anyone else to be on this show.
Right.
Right, currently.
Yeah.
But once I get operational, I plan on bringing in at least two other employees, because I'm gonna need manufacturers, essentially, people to make the product, package the product. And then I will handle most of the marketing in the beginning. So I'm a small guy, but I have plans to grow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're kind of forecasting at least 2 other employees on.
I
payroll.
forecast probably no more than 5, up to 5, yeah, once everything gets rolling.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Andrade. Anyone else? Commissioner Zick.
Mr. Gibson, I meant to lead in my question first with thanking you for your service in the Air Force. I wanted to make sure I said that to you.
Thank you, and thank you if any of you others served as well.
Is that all, Commissioner? Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no one else. All right, thank you, Mr. Gibson. You're welcome to take a seat for a minute, and then I think we might call you back up a little later on. Okay, thank you, sir. All right, I will now open the public comment period. If you'd like to speak to this item and you're in chambers, you're welcome to come to either podium. All right, seeing no one. Anna, do we have anyone online or on phone?
No, we do not, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of the public hearing. And commissioners, I'll ask you if you have any further questions for the applicant. All right, seeing none. Does anyone have, Mr. Gibson, do you have any final remarks before we move along?
No, just, again, thank you for the time. I appreciate you guys listening.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, commissioners, do you have any further questions for staff? All right, seeing none. Now I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion, please. Motion made, it went off and on. Motion made by Commissioner Vivar. What is your motion, sir?
Yeah. So, I might need some help with the condition, but I basically would like to make a motion to approve the item with conditions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read it, Commissioner Vivar. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. Recommendation to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, per CEQA Guidelines, Section 15301, Class 1, existing facilities, and approved planning application 23-10, subject to conditions. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Second made by Commissioner Rojas. Would you like to speak to your motion, Commissioner Vivar?
Nothing other than just to wish the applicant best of luck in your operation and your growth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rojas. Commissioner Vivar, would you like to speak to your motion?
No additional comments, but thank you for choosing Costa Mesa, and good luck.
All right. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion before we move along? All right. I think I will go ahead and wrap it up by saying, Mr. Gibson, thank you very much for considering Costa Mesa to open up your business. Like you, I'm a one-man LLC. And yeah, I do. So I wish you the best of luck as a small business owner, and I will be supporting the motion. So Anna, if we could bring the vote up, please.
That motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you, Anna. That decision is final unless appealed to the City Council within 7 days. Good luck, Mr. Gibson. Okay, thank you. Would we like to move along? Second one? All right, let's go ahead and move along. Anna, if you'd please read the title for public hearing item number 2, please.
Public hearing item number 2, planning application 23-12 and tentative parcel map 2023-167 for a conversion of an existing building at 200 East Baker Street into a non-residential common interest development and to allow a food and beverage use in the MP Industrial Park zone. Please note we have not received public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Great, thank you, Anna. Any ex parte to report? Commissioner Rojas, Commissioner Zick?
Yeah, I met with Tim and Corey at their property this morning for about an hour.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Andrade? All right, Vice Chair? Commissioner Vivar? Commissioner Klepak? All right, and I have none to report either. So I will now turn it over to Mr. Yeager to present the item. Mr. Yeager.
Good evening, Chair and Commission. My name is Chris Yeager, Associate Planner with the City of Costa Mesa. Project before you is the condo conversion at 200 East Baker Street. The subject site, it's approximately 3 acres, and it is located on the north side of East Baker Street between Newport Boulevard and Red Hill Avenue. The project is surrounded by other similar uses on all sides and a residential use. The Baker Block is located across the street. The property, it is zoned MP or Industrial Park and has a general plan land use designation of Industrial Park as well. The zoning district is intended for large concentrated industrial uses. The aim of these developments is to create a spacious environment and a park-like setting. The property is surrounded by other MP zone properties on all sides, and as mentioned, the Baker Blocks apartments across the street, those are planned development, residential, high density. The existing conditions of the site are shown on the screen. The top row is the building from the front facade. The bottom row shows the drive aisles on each side of the building and then the parking lot at the rear of the building. And then in terms of the surrounding area, the top row shows the building directly across the street. It's currently occupied by the California Lottery. And then Baker Block is shown on the right side. The bottom row shows the 2 properties on each side of the subject site. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for the conversion of an existing 2-story, approximately 40,000 square foot, single owner office building into 11 resident or non-residential condominium units on 1 lot with ancillary common spaces. With the conversion, these 11 units could be sold independently and be privately owned. Proposed ancillary spaces include interior common areas, the parking lot, landscaping, and the proposed cafe. The proposed conversion would result in units ranging from approximately 1,600 square feet to 8,300 square feet, and the conversion also includes a request for a deviation to keep the existing non-conforming parking configuration. A parcel map is proposed to facilitate the condo conversion, and in addition, a minor conditional use permit is proposed to permit an approximately 1,500 square foot food and beverage establishment with an outdoor dining patio located at the front of the building. For non-residential common interest conversions, all conversions of previously occupied developments are subject to specific conversion standards and are processed through the CUP. These conversions require the approval of a parcel map as required by the California Subdivision Map Act, and conversion projects are required to meet current zoning requirements unless a deviation is granted by the Planning Commission. The municipal code requires a submittal of a variety of organizational documents to verify that the property will have a plan for permanent care and maintenance, and the applicant has provided that document in form of the CC&Rs. The final CC&Rs will be reviewed by the City Attorney's Office for compliance with the municipal code and conditions of the project. The project did require inspections from the fire department and police department. They found that once the tenant improvements are complete, that building code will be met on all assets of the project. And in addition, a variety of inspection reports have been provided with the application, and these are to ensure that the building being converted is compliant with all current codes and free of hazards for future tenants. As required, the applicant submitted a structural, pest, asbestos, mold, mechanical equipment, electrical, plumbing, and a roof report. These reports indicated compliance or outlined repairs which are necessary. Any repairs that are necessary or recommended are conditioned to be incorporated into the project. Overall, the use and operation of the site would remain generally unchanged as compared to what is currently existing on site. The building would be updated to meet current building and fire codes, and exterior modifications are proposed to include updates to the facade, additional landscaping, the installation of charging stations, and the construction of a new dining patio at the front of the building for the proposed cafe. Other upgrades are proposed to bring common bathrooms into compliance with current code and to include those recommendations from those aforementioned reports. It should be noted all future uses at the site are still subject to the land use matrix. For condo conversion projects, the zoning code standards are required to be met with the exception of floor area ratio. The applicant is requesting a deviation to the parking standards to keep the existing non-conforming parking layout. Currently, the site is developed with 147 parking stalls consisting of 91 standard spaces and 56 small car spaces. The majority of these parking spaces do not comply with the required parking space dimensions, backup aisle dimensions, and the percentage of parking that is devoted to small cars. The applicant is requesting this deviation to keep the existing parking configuration even though it does not comply with the current standards, which would result in a parking lot to stay as it currently is. If the parking lot was reconfigured to meet current code, the parking lot would be able to accommodate the 117 parking stalls required for the project and some. Since the investment is currently being made to revamp this property, staff is suggesting condition of approval number 13, which does require that the parking lot be reconfigured to meet the current city standards. In order to approve a deviation to the zoning code, the applicants must demonstrate that due to the proportions, scale, design elements, and relationship with the neighborhood, that the project is a continued value to the community, and that the deviation is acceptable because the project would be impracticable or physically impossible without compromising the integrity of the overall project. In addition to the condo conversion, the project is requesting a minor conditional use permit to allow for a food and beverage establishment within the industrial park zone. This would also allow for the patio to encroach into the existing landscaping at the front of the building. The proposed cafe would consist of a 504 square foot indoor dining area, a 553 square foot outdoor dining patio, and a 527 square foot back of house. The outdoor patio, it is proposed in the landscape area, as I just mentioned. However, additional landscaping is being proposed around the patio and at the front of the building to offset lost landscaping. The cafe, it would serve as an amenity to the site. So it would be under common ownership, and it would include potential events such as catering, wine of the month program, office gatherings, and just general cafe coffee usage. Future tenants would be subject to approval from the condominium association, and it should be noted that the site, it is 130 feet from the Baker Block apartments. The buildings themselves are approximately 340 feet apart. And since that is in proximity to a residential zone, the additional standards you see on the screen would be subject to the cafe use. To facilitate the condo conversion, a tentative parcel map has been proposed, and this would allow for the building to have the 11-unit airspace condominiums on one lot with ancillary common spaces. Staff has reviewed the parcel map with the Municipal Code and the California Subdivision Map Act and determined that the map is in compliance with the respective regulations. So the applicant did provide a landscape plan in which they propose to retain the majority of the existing mature vegetation on site. And in addition to the 31 trees that remain on site, the project proposes to plant 11 new trees. Shrubs and ground cover are proposed which also are California native and drought tolerant. If landscaping is proposed or is needed to be modified to comply with a revised parking lot revision, there are conditions which would require that that landscape be incorporated as well. So in addition to the variety of standard conditions, staff is proposing a few conditions specifically for the project. One, the CCNRs are going to be reviewed by the city attorney's office. The final map will be recorded prior to the sale of any units. All requirements and recommendations as indicated on the inspection reports shall be incorporated into the building permit submittal. And condition number 13, which would require that the parking lot be reconfigured in compliance with the parking standards and that applicable landscape also be provided. In order to approve the project, the Planning Commission must make the required findings for tentative parcel map, CUP and MCUP, and the common interest conversion findings. The staff report included detailed findings, but in short, the project's compatible with the zoning code and general plan. It's physically suited for the condo subdivision. The site is already serviced by all respective utilities. The project's compatible with the surrounding developments, and it would comply with building and fire code, so it would not be detrimental to the health and safety of the surrounding neighborhood. The conversion will not displace any residents because it is not a residential conversion. It achieves a high standard of appearance and is a quality project. The project does comply with the zoning code. And the deviation finding as proposed showed that the deviation could not be granted because conforming parking could be provided on site. And the project is not in an urban plan. So with that, staff's recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and to approve the common interest conversion and minor conditional use permit for the food establishment. So I'll make myself available to questions. The applicant and their team is here. They have made a presentation as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yeager. I'll go ahead and jump in because I think what kind of stood out to me from the reading material and from your presentation was centered on, in part, the request for a parking deviation. And I would like to start out by drawing my colleagues' attention to page 12 of the agenda. And if you look at the bottom bullet point, we can read it together. And I would like to pay special attention to the word impracticable. For a proposed common interest development conversion project that does not conform to the zoning code requirements, the project, due to its proportions and scale, design elements, and relationship to the surrounding neighborhood, is of continued value to the community, and it contributes to defining and improving the community as a whole. Deviations from zoning code requirements are acceptable because it would be impracticable or physically impossible without compromising the integrity of the overall project to implement features that could result in conformance with current code requirements. So by drawing attention to the word impracticable, it means it cannot be done. It cannot physically be done. You cannot reconfigure the parking lot in such a way that it wouldn't somehow undermine the whole project in its entirety. And here's my question to you, Mr. Yeager, after reading that whole thing, and I'm certainly happy to read the next paragraph, but is it staff's belief that redesigning the parking is impracticable, or is it just impractical?
Staff believes that the parking lot can be redesigned to meet the current standards.
Okay.
It will involve some investment from the applicants, but it is possible.
Okay, so it is not by definition impracticable. Okay, even though it is impractical, possibly. Okay, and with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to my colleagues if you have any further questions. Commissioner Zick.
Mr. Yeager, I always appreciate your staff reports. You do a lot of research. You consider everything. They're very thorough, and I appreciate them.
Thank you.
I don't feel like I'm looking for missing pieces when I look through your reports. If you could turn to page 10 of your presentation, I had a question that you raised. And you, if I understood you correctly, you were indicating that these requirements for the cafe are born out of the fact that the Baker block is in close proximity?
Correct. The municipal code has a specific standards if it's within 200 feet of residential zone.
Understand. But this building was here first, before Baker Block.
Correct.
So Baker Block coming into the neighborhood then puts additional requirement burden on the existing properties in the area, correct?
Correct.
I see, okay. And then my next question, if we were to grant the deviation for parking, that would mean condition number 13 would be struck from the conditions of approval? Is that how that would work?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And in terms of your assessment of reconfiguring the parking lot, you know, certainly I think most things are physically possible. A building that exceeded FAR could be remedied by lopping off whatever square footage was needed. I mean, that's physically possible. Maybe you get to the point of being whether it's practical or impractical, that idea. Economically practical or economically impractical. I don't know what the cost would be, and I'm not asking you this as a question. I don't know what the cost would be to completely redo that parking lot. But if it was an excessive cost, my question to you about that is, would that in your mind contribute to the assessment of practical or impractical, meaning might physically be possible, but economically impractical? Would that be a way you might look at that issue?
The standard practice for in implementing the zoning code is not to look at financial impacts. So we have not looked at that in our analysis. We are just looking at the practicality of a conforming parking lot being possible on the lot.
Got it. We're not really concerned how much investment they'd have to make to do that, just whether or not it would be physically possible.
Correct. That was staff's analysis, yes.
And how did we consider, or do we even consider, the existence of all the mature trees that are there and the impact to them basically being all removed, or the majority of them being removed, to reconfigure the parking lot? Do we care about that, or do we consider that?
It would be considered, and if the parking lot was to be redone to meet current code, it would also have to meet the current code for canopy cover in the parking lot as established by our landscape code. So keeping the mature trees, the code does allow for applicants to, or for anyone to remove trees as long as the planning division approves replacement trees.
But the replacement trees would be little sticks and boxes. They wouldn't be the gorgeous mature trees that are there right now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zick. Commissioner Vivar?
Okay, I appreciate your very thorough presentation as well. So regarding the parking, I do want to ask, did staff look at whether or not the current parking lot configuration and its striping conforms to the ADA parking requirements?
So the ADA requirements would have to be provided as part of the building permit submittal either way. So it would have to come into ADA conformance.
So if they don't currently have the ADA required number of essentially blue spaces with their signage and everything, they need to do that. They can't get around that. Is that correct?
Correct. I believe that it does meet the current standards, but I would have to double check for you.
Okay. And did staff also look at whether or not they meet the requirements in terms of ADA accessible ramps and other similar infrastructure?
So the building department provided a condition that all building code requirements be incorporated into the building permit submittal, and that would include all accessibility items.
So ADA ramps from parking lot to the internal walkways, correct?
Correct.
I think I know. I think I've heard that recent building codes require things like an internal sprinkler system. Would they be required to add that to their building?
I'm not sure. I can confer with the building department and get back to you on that one.
Well, if it were required by code, they would have to do that, correct? Whether or not you're able to get that information to me.
If it's required by code, yes.
Okay. And the food and beverage establishment, so that would essentially be tenant occupied, correct?
Correct, yes.
And that tenant would then pay rent to the, I guess, to the condo association? Right.
I believe so. I would recommend you ask the applicant that question as well, though.
Okay. So would this function in a similar way to an HOA where the applicant, where each individual owner would have to pay sort of a monthly association fee?
Most likely, but I would recommend you ask the applicant.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you. That's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Anyone else? Commissioner Klepek.
Not right now.
Okay, all right. We'll have another bite at the apple. Mr. Yeager, yeah, please.
If I could just circle back to Commissioner Zick's question about it striking the condition, if that would be enough to allow for to keep the existing parking lot. You would also need to modify the finding. So the finding would have to be provided for the deviation as well as removing that condition.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Yeager. In order to make the finding, theoretically, you would have to show that it is of great public benefit to keep the parking lot situated as is. Would that be the finding?
That's more or less how the finding reads, yes.
Yeah, that it provides a service that is unique in such a way that it does not have to conform to the parking standards. And that's okay. It's rhetorical. I know the answer. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Commissioner Klepek.
I do have a question. I was just going to hold off because I have a feeling you're going to say to ask the applicant. But related to the cafe and the relationship to the neighborhood, I just wanted to clarify, is it intended to be open to the public, and would that include weekends?
It is intended to be open to the public. I don't know what the operating hours are proposed. They just need to comply with the operating hours between 6 a.m. and 11.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that all, Commissioner? Okay. Vice Chair, do you have any thoughts?
Sure, I'm just doing the calculus here with the parking spots real quick. Currently, they have 147 spaces, right? And the code requires 117. And it's the mix that's wrong. The number of compact spaces is where we're having trouble here.
So it's the size of the stalls.
Yeah.
The required size for a standard stall is 9 feet by 18 feet. And the stalls on site range from 8 feet 5 inches to 9 feet in width.
Right.
So some of them are in compliance. And then for the small car parking, those sizes also do not comply. It's required to be 8 feet by 16 feet, and they range from 9 feet 2 inches to 10 feet in width by 15 feet.
Yeah, so the stalls are substandard, but the number of stalls is not an issue.
Correct.
Right? And the current, what they currently require doesn't take into account the cafe. So
correct. The 117 stalls does take into account the cafe.
okay, so they used to have 30 extra spaces. No, they used to have more than 30. Now they have 30 extra spaces.
Correct.
Okay. That's what I was trying to confirm. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair. Anyone else? All right. Mr. Yeager, thank you so much. I think we'll keep you up here for a little bit because I think we'll probably have some follow-up questions. I'll now open up the public hearing and ask the applicant or the applicant's representatives to come forward to either podium. And if you would, please state your name or your names. For the record, let us know if you've read the staff report and the conditions of approval, and do you agree to them?
I'm going to move this up if you don't mind. I'm Corey Walker. I'm the architect for the project. And this, go ahead.
My name's Tim Cottage. I'm the development manager for this.
All right, thank you. Floor is yours if, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We both have read the conditions and the report.
Okay, and do you agree to the conditions of approval?
Everything but the parking, and we'd like to talk about that.
Okay, sure. The floor is yours if you'd like to make a brief presentation.
Excellent. And Chris, are you on the slide switching? Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. So this is the proposed project. I just want to quickly walk through the 7 items of design that we're using to improve this project. Chris, your presentation was excellent, man. You covered a lot of this. So 40,000 square foot office, it's demising into 11 condo offices for sale, not for lease. We are also required for accessibility to provide a new ADA accessible route from the public right-of-way to the front entrance. We're proposing to provide the linear wood facade upgrade. You can see it where it says Le Café at the facade, and that is the right side of the image is actually where the cafe is and the new proposed patio. Next slide, please. This is where the new cafe is going. Next slide, please. And this is the proposed cafe. Next slide. So this is the floor plan. The green and the blue are the condo offices, and the red is the proposed cafe. And just immediately to the left of the cafe is the cafe patio, and the front entrance is number 6. If you see that number 6, that is where a new planter is, where we're installing a new mature live oak tree. Next slide, please. So the second floor, you can see a lounge space on the right side of the common area. We're really trying to invigorate the common spaces of this project to promote community and to get people out of their office to talk and chat and really make a community. The cafe is also an amenity to the project and used as a tool to interact with the rest of the surrounding area to promote community as well. We're also, with the talk with the inspector that we had on site, he did mention that the stairs, both stairs, do not meet the code for the riser height and require modification, so there's some resources allocated to that. Next slide, please. This is the general look we're going for. The left image is the public area where we're trying to promote the community. The right is a suite, and we're trying to tie the inside of the project with the outside. Next page, thank you. So this is a comparison of the existing parking and the requested parking revision. And we're proposing that we keep the existing parking configuration. You can see on the right, the revision has 9 trees that are affected by this revision. Next slide, please. And I just want to kind of go full circle on this office typology, or this office. So traditional office leasing has declined over the pandemic because the niche as a whole has been interrupted by people working from home and businesses downsizing. So office has been struggling. So this building actually, 50% of the building has been vacant and unleasable, which is the second floor since the early pandemic by the previous owner, First Washington Realty. And that led to the sale of the building and to the new owners. And so we believe that this condo office strategy is required for the success of the building. Otherwise, we would keep the parking lot the same and just do the lease model versus the condo office model. So, so this is basically a tenant improvement of existing office space. It's been functional since 1984, and the parking lot has been functional since 1984, further revised in 2003. So to answer one of your questions, the ADA parking has been updated in 2003-ish and is fully compliant, disregarding the new accessible route that we have to provide to the front door. So we believe that the parking revision is impractical. It creates 14 stalls less. We would prefer to allocate the resources to the front of the building to maintain the Costa Mesa standard of appearance and the front-facing portion of this and public portion of this building, which is the front, not the rear. Next slide, please. So this is a photo that we took this morning showing how large the mature trees are that are affected and the hydrant that has to be relocated. This is at the rear entrance. Next slide, please. So thank you for your time, and we're open for questions. And we can answer some of those questions that you guys had too.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Walker and Mr. Cottage. Appreciate it. I'll go ahead and take the first bite just because I did earlier. If we can go back to page 9 of the presentation, Mr. Yeager. Okay. I see here in point 3, you use the word impractical to reconfigure the parking lot. And as you probably took note earlier of the actual language that's within our code, it doesn't say impractical, it says impracticable, like cannot physically be done. So just on your account, can what the city's request is of you, can it physically not be done?
It can be done. There's just trade-offs to it.
Okay. All right. I could see where the word impractical might be used here, but by definition, I'm trying to think of what impracticable means here because it doesn't seem it doesn't seem to apply. I'll go ahead and hold off on any further further comments, and I'll hand it off to my colleagues. Who else would like to jump in? Commissioner Rojas, Commissioner Zick, Commissioner Andrade, Vice Chair, Commissioner Vivar.
Yep. All right, thank you for your presentation and for answering my question about the 8A parking. Appreciate that. So you would pursue a kind of HOA type model, I guess BOA, Business Owners Association, where people pay a monthly fee for the upkeep of the property, is that correct?
Correct. So this is basically going to act as a homeowners association, but it'll be a condo owner association. So each owner, as they come in and buy up one of the spaces, will have to sign on to the CC&Rs, and that'll keep for the property upkeep and maintenance and the general stuff like that.
Right. So you mentioned the 50% of the building is unoccupied. So the first floor, would the current owners, do you think they'd be purchasing the units they're in already?
So no, the current tenants, First Washington Realty, who recently bought out Donahue Schreiber, they're basically using that top floor as storage. Mm-hmm. We are on a lease with them right now. Mm-hmm. They are currently building a new office for themselves that they are desperate to get into.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then so the occupants of the food and beverage establishment would be paying rent to the, I guess, the homeowners association?
Well, actually, fun fact, our company, Hilco Development Services, we actually want to maintain ownership of the restaurant space, and then we will rent it out to an owner-operator. That kind of keeps us involved in not just Costa Mesa, but that keeps us involved with the condo association, and that helps us pick a tenant that will work for this community, for the building, for the neighbors.
So I'm trying to get my head around this. So the food and beverage space, is that then tied to a condo unit that you're going to own?
I'm sorry, you're right. I absolutely did not answer your question. Yes, so the tenant that takes over that space will pay its rent to the owners who will pay their dues to the condo association.
Right. So that food and beverage space is not attached to a particular unit. It's its own freestanding area, right?
No, so the cafe space, the cafe unit will be a unit that is part of the entire association.
So somebody could come in and purchase it and just kind of make coffee forever, basically, right?
I mean, if they were the owner and that's what they wanted to do, sure.
Yeah. So what you mean about wanting to have a say in who goes into that space, wouldn't that just be up to the market to who purchases that unit first and then opens up a food establishment?
Yeah, but we want to maintain ownership and then help find an owner operator to go in there.
Via a lease for.
Like lease it out to a.
I guess I'm a bit confused. So you're going to buy that unit, then let's lease it out.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, we already own the property now, so, but yeah.
So you'll sell every other unit except for that one, is what I'm understanding here, right?
Correct.
Okay, that makes more sense. I don't know if your building has some kind of an elevator, does it, for, say, wheelchair access to the second floor?
It does.
It doesn't?
It does, yes.
It does, okay. I think that might be it in terms of my questions. So thank you for your time. I appreciate your presentation as well.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Commissioner Zick.
I'm going to follow up on Commissioner Vivar's series of questions because now I'm a little bit confused. You indicate that you are going to be creating 11 suites for sale. Is that true?
Correct, yes. 11 suites for sale.
Is the cafe one of those 11 suites?
No.
Thank you. So you are not selling the cafe space. The HOA, if you want to call it that, the Owners Association will find somebody to lease that space to. Is that correct?
No. We will maintain ownership of that space.
Who's we?
Hilco Development Services.
So 11 other people are going to buy suites in that building,
Correct.
and you are going to remain an owner for that space where the cafe goes.
Correct.
Are you then, by virtue of that ownership, also a member of the association?
Correct.
An equal voting member to the other 11?
Yes.
And why is it you're not selling that as a 12th suite? Why are you keeping that?
I mean, it's part of 6 different ways to answer your question. Just went through my head. Apologies. We didn't want to just come into Costa Mesa, make this business deal, dip out, and walk away from everything. This keeps us a foothold in Costa Mesa. We like Costa Mesa. This keeps us involved in the community, and this gives us a way to kind of continue our involvement here that's not just an office space that we sold and then walked away.
So let's say that the building is fully occupied, up and running, the cafe's in there. Let's say one of the 11 owners who's running a business now in one of the suites they bought decides to sell their suite to another business. Do the other 10 business owners have a say in whether the new business that wants to buy that suite can do that?
I don't have enough knowledge of commercial condo association documents to really give you a good answer on that one. I would imagine not.
I would imagine not too. So then I'm wondering, would those 11 suite owners have the ability to say to you, we don't like your food and beverage operator, get somebody else in there? And I'm thinking they would not be able to do that.
I would surely hope not.
So why are you saying this is 11 suites and not 12 with you retaining ownership in the 12th?
Because we wanted to specifically split off that it is 11 office suites and a cafe suite.
Okay. A total of 12 owners, though.
Correct.
Okay. That answers my question, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Zick. I'm curious after that last line of questioning if Mr. Preziosi has any thoughts, and you certainly don't have to, Mr. Preziosi. I just wondering about voting and ownership and form.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure the Planning Commission is informed of what they're improving and what the consequences of that approval are going to be. So for the applicant to say we don't have the CCNR documents in front of us, I'm not saying they're being disingenuous, but it sounds disingenuous because those will govern the relationship of who can be and what types of uses can be in those suites.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Preziosi. Following that response, do the commissioners have any questions, any additional questions along that line? We can always revisit that.
Yeah, I have
Commissioner Vivar.
one more, if I may, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I believe it was in your presentation and also in the staff report, I think it mentions that the owners of the suites would basically have a say in who goes into that beverage establishment, but you're saying you're going to own it and you want to choose who goes into it. So I guess I want to understand, because they sound mutually exclusive here. Either you have a say or everybody has a say. So which one is it?
So currently, the CCNR docs are in draft form. I don't know what that final outcome will be. There's lots of discussions going on with it. It's going to be whatever's going to work best for the building and for all the owners. I don't want somebody to come in and try to slap a Burger King in there. But, something that would be closer to, Lost Bean would be good.
Well, but let's say somebody wants to go in and open a taco stand where you want a cafe. Would they be able to do that?
If a taco stand came up with a good business plan and it made sense for the building, I'm sure it could be entertained. But we will want it to be something that will serve not just the businesses there for a quick lunch meeting or go grab a quick bite to eat on your way out the door, but something for the Baker Block folk across the street as well.
Okay, so essentially you're saying it's not necessarily, in practicality, you won't necessarily have all the say as to what food establishment goes into this unit, right?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat your question? I didn't quite understand that.
So no, the CCNRs are not written yet, as you stated, but so essentially you will not have the final say then on what operator will have a cafe there, right? Is that what I'm hearing? It'll be up to the other 11 units as well as yourself?
I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, okay. Me either.
Just one second, Commissioner Vivar. I see one of the other staff coming up.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Cameron Hildreth. I'm one of the owners of Hilco Development Services and one of the project managers working on the project with Tim. So to kind of help out, called me in for a pinch hit. We will not have the condo association owners make a determination as to what goes into that space. We have an extensive background in retail and restaurant development. We can show you some of our other projects, but we are planning to maintain control of that decision.
So if I may, Commissioner Vivar, I just had a second thought. So if the logic is that the other property owners will not be determining what business goes into or what retail or restaurant business goes into your site, then would it stand to reason that you cannot dictate what the property owners put into their own site as well?
Yeah. So long as it conforms to the zoning.
You would get no vote in terms of what they decide to put into their property.
No, yeah, correct. So long as they're following the, condo association guidelines, we can't just make a decision because we don't like the name of the business or.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Vivar, I'll hand it back to you if you have further questions.
Yeah, I don't think I have any about this, although I will say I'm still kind of confused. But I will, I don't know if this is a question for Mr. Preziosi or staff, but I am wondering if 11 units will be for sale, but the applicant will retain the ownership of, it appears, the 12th unit. Wouldn't the subdivision report that we have on hand read the creation of 12 owner-occupied units rather than 11? So subdivision of 12 airspace units rather than 11 airspace units.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. I don't think this is a typical program. It's a new program for me from my perspective of a subdivision. What staff was more or less advised that this was going to be was a function of the HOA and basically operated through a managerial process via the HOA. If you look at some of the sheets, specifically A2.01 of the plans, you'll see where they label suites 102 through various labels, 101 and all the way through 111. There might be 211 actually if there's second floor. Anyways, they might be labeled. I apologize. But nevertheless, it's certainly not, the cafe is not part of the subdivision. Again, it's from an ownership perspective, I have seen a map where there would have been a separate parcel, so to speak, like even an A lot or something like that, where they would do something to where there would be an ownership rights in the association. I don't know if the applicant is correct with regards to the process that they're proposing. I'm assuming that they've worked this out with an engineer in the Department of Real Estate who handles condo processes. If they hadn't, I can tell you that this map will come back to you if there's mistakes in the process. But from our perspective, from staff review of it, this was going to be an entity of the HOA, very similar to the lounge and the other lounges. The only difference is this was going to be a commercial entity. And there's no provisions against it in the MAP Act per se, but from the perspective of an ownership of that, that's a different matter that I'm not familiar with. I'll be clear, where there's been a ownership of the common areas. I know that there are certain sites that have managers that have sold off these properties and they take responsibility for the common areas, and that might be worked in. I've seen projects like that. I just haven't seen them with a commercial entity like that, so to speak.
Okay, so I think if I were to, I guess, use the analogy of a residential condo development where you have, say, I don't know, 15 condos and then a common space, a pool, and maybe a rec room or gym. This cafe would be like the rec room or gym, is what you're saying. But I guess then the confusion is, if it's a common space, how can that common space be owned by, I guess, sort of an individual or LLC or whatever?
Yeah, that's a confusing point for me. I'm just not familiar with that process. And like I said, typically when a developer goes through an engineering process, they've worked all that in the forehand, and it usually can be summarized in the HOAs. And again, if not, the map will have to come back.
It would come back to a CUP hearing?
Correct. To modify the map if that needs to be addressed through the DRE, which is the Department of Real Estate. But for now, as the HOA, I don't see a problem. I don't have any concerns, so to speak, with that. I'm assuming what they've asked to do can be done.
Would the planning commission, say, be able to, I mean, I don't know if there's language in the conditions or something about, if we were to approve this tonight, whether we're also approving the cafe being sort of privately owned, would we be able to kind of decouple that and kind of add language that the operation of the cafe would be decided at a later time by city attorney's office review of the CCNRs and planning staff?
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I'd leave that up to the city attorney to weigh in to see if that was something that could be done. But certainly as a condition of approval, your point is to ease the requirement to come back when we know of the issue already. Correct?
That's correct, sir.
Yeah. No, great. It's a great suggestion, and I think Mr. Preziosi should speak to that, if possible. It's such a outside request.
So if you could rephrase the question, please.
Yeah, so Mr. Preziosi, essentially what I'm asking is, would the planning commission be able to approve the item tonight, but essentially leave the operation of the cafe to the review of the city attorney's office, of the CCNRs and planning staff as to how that will operate in terms of ownership or the lack of thereof of that cafe space?
So in terms of the city attorney's office review, typically what the city attorney reviews is make sure all the conditions are okay from a legal standpoint. There's nothing discriminatory and so forth, but that's fairly unusual. More importantly, the CCNRs are reviewed to make sure they accurately reflect the conditions of approval. So if there are conditions of approval that the Planning Commission wants to impose, this is the time to do it, because the city attorney will not be imposing conditions of approval unless the Planning Commission states them here and now. The Planning Commission can certainly vest certain things to staff, but I think the better practice is for Planning Commission to be clear and articulate what they want to see in the CCNRs or what they want to see in the conditions of approval, so that those conditions of approval are reflected in the CCNRs, if applicable.
So Commissioner Vivar, if I may, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to move through this
Sure.
item a little bit, because I know the applicants are still up here.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I want to make sure if we have some outstanding questions of staff that we do
Sure.
that towards
Yeah.
the end. Is that okay with you?
That's it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I would just like to clarify. I know we have the 11 suites with the different suite numbers on here, but for the tentative parcel map and breaking up of the spaces, it will be 12 parcels. So it will be 11 suites and then the cafe each individually separate mapped out.
Okay. Mr. Yeager or Director Drapkin, do you have a response to that?
So the staff analysis was under the impression that it would be the 11 units
Okay.
with the cafe as an ancillary space. However, the analysis in terms of land use wouldn't change whether it's 12 or 11.
Okay. Do you, Mr. Yeager, foresee any reworking to this item? Do you need to go back at all, or is this something we can decide tonight? I just like to ask in advance before we move forward.
It seems like it would be okay. Any finding that mentions 11 units would have to be revised to 12.
Okay. Let's keep that in mind as we move along, if there's a motion made here. Did you have any other comments to make, sir?
No, I just wanted to make sure we kind of
Sure.
tied
Okay.
that all
And
together.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Vice Chair.
Yes, thank you. So going back to the parking lot and the trees, the chair was right at the bottom of staff report, page 12. There's a key finding that these trees and the parking arrangement hangs on. And the last sentence really says that in order for you guys to keep the parking the way you want, we'd have to find that it would be essentially physically impossible to do so without compromising the integrity of the overall project. So there's a lot of words there. It's not the most cut and dry thing I've ever seen. I could see arguments, being made either way. But just for our sake, before the hearing's closed, if you could, I know you gave us this bullet list. It's really the last one that I'd like to hear from you guys before you sit down and we close the hearing. You prefer to allocate resources to the front of the building to maintain Costa Mesa high standards of appearance. So physically impossible without compromising the integrity of this project. Thanks. So why would redoing the parking lot, why might that compromise the integrity of the project? Sorry to give you a hard question. That's the one we have to deal with.
Question. Thank you. Well, I mean, speaking from an architect, every project has a budget, and there will need to be significant resources allocated towards the tree removal, the removal of the hydrant, resurfacing the parking lot, and reconfiguring the traffic islands. There's a lot of work to be done there that could possibly dilute the appearance of and the resources available to having a very attractive cafe entrance and the screen that we have proposed to improve the front of the building, as well as all the drought-tolerant landscaping that we're putting in to make this attractive and potentially compete with aesthetics like down the street, like the camp and the lab and all those very successful developments that have a high standard of appearance. So it practically, those resources could be used to improve it in other ways, in our opinion.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, sir. Colleagues, any further questions of the applicant? All right, Commissioner Andrade.
I'm gonna tack on these trees. Such a heartbreak. We're trying to build our way to be part of Tree City, Costa Mesa Tree City, right? And we really know that green spaces really just support in overall the communities for cleaner air, cooler temperatures, especially with rising temperatures that we're experiencing year over year. So so the rationale of you like looking at the picture of the map, like you need to remove it so that becomes a full parking space, or is that the reason why you need to remove those, like the ones with the diamond on it?
That's a really good point. You want to take this one?
Oh, well, yeah, the diamonds specifically need to be pulled out so that's a full-size parking space. We're also going to lose a few trees from those outward islands, the kind of oblong-shaped ones. And that's because the drive aisles need to be a certain width. So those islands need to be shortened, and there's trees in that path.
And we need you need to resize these so that it meets our requirements of car parking sizes, right? Mr. Yeager, right? Is that what it is?
It's a combination of meeting the right size of the parking space, and then the backup distance requirement from parking spaces is 25 feet, and then the percentage of small car parking. But the combination of those three is what results in this.
Is there opportunities to reconfigure like the surrounding parking spaces so that, you know, maybe the ones with the trees can be part of your small parking stalls? You know, I guess I'm looking for creative ways on keeping as many trees as possible. Removing 9 healthy trees is quite a deterrent for the city, right? Because will there be an opportunity to replant them, replace them somewhere else? Like Commissioner Vick said, right? Removing these would just mean replacing a little box with a branch, as opposed to a fully grown adult tree, which takes years in getting to that state. And I guess to that extension of the islands, is that a more an aesthetic thing, or kind of a limitation just to be able to drive through the parking garage?
Well, I mean, I guess you could paint the boundaries of the island instead of reforming the concrete, but then it wouldn't meet our standard of aesthetics. You know, typically you would see the concrete being reformed to match the width of the stalls. So it's kind of like a standard of architecture, I would think.
And so keeping the trees that are in the diamond locations and maybe reconfiguring the other parking stalls to make those your small ones, do you think, is that possible in your?
I think the only solution with the diamond stalls would just be to remove the 6 stalls where the diamonds are.
So that can't become one of your small stalls?
It's too small to, it wouldn't meet the code depth for the stalls.
For a small
For the small, yeah.
Compact ones.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, I'm really excited about this project, actually hearing about it. I work in this area, so it's exciting to know that there'll be more amenities. And then another question is, so you mentioned, you know, the change in businesses, right, on how offices are being leased nowadays. So in your experience, you're finding that this kind of suite style office building is something more common and more in demand nowadays?
Well, I think like the ownership aspect of getting equity in the building is attractive to owners, so that they can grow equity with the building. I think that's another incentive to sell the space versus the traditional lease model. I think that's the biggest reason why it's happening. That's the only thing I can think of. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's great. That's really informative. Yeah, I mean, again, I appreciate how you're focusing on the, what is it, drought tolerant shrubs and nature up in the front. I get that there's an aesthetic. I didn't realize there was a parking aesthetic to park our cars, but that's really great to know. But if we do need to come back and evaluate the contracts and everything else that was previously discussed, if there's an opportunity of maybe being creative and finding a way to salvage as many trees, any green space as possible, would be great.
So
Commissioner Andrade, I was actually just going to say, Director Dropkin.
I think that, as staff provided in the report, we reviewed the finding that needed to be made. We used the words in the finding, specifically impracticable, knowing that it means not feasible. But like Commissioner Toller mentioned, Vice Chair Toller mentioned, there is some gray area that the commission could make a finding of determination for if the commission wanted to, in basically making the finding that the overall project integrity would be compromised by the code enforcements. So they would have to, the commission would have to make the determination that the integrity would be compromised by removing the mature landscaping. So is it impracticable by just itself? I think that it's not impractical, and I guess what I mean by that is it's completely feasible to provide those parking spaces. It's very clear. It's half of the property is parking, and they're proposing more parking than they even need. So the bar is not set at the parking, all of it that they have. The bar is set at the required. The bar is set at the required standard spaces, and the bar is set at the spaces that are small car that's allowed, which is, I believe, 10%? 10% of the required parking. But staff didn't believe that there would be a integrity loss of the overall project to implement this with meeting the code compliance. That was staff's recommendation. But if the commission felt otherwise, they could certainly do so. But staff would be somewhat concerned of setting precedent for doing something like that, and then possibly not ever getting another opportunity to find compliance. This project after this is probably done. So the code intent is to find compliance. It's also to keep integrity of the city as well. So it's a give and take, I guess, clearly.
Commissioner Andrade, do you mind if I jump in for a second? Director Dropkin, in the event that we move forward with staff recommendation and these trees do get cut, does the city have a position on putting new trees in? Or, I mean, for public knowledge, will you just kind of state what the city's position is on mitigating lost trees on site?
The landscape ordinance of the municipal code allows the planning division to require replacement trees at appropriate sizes per trees that are removed. And the city practice is to require at least the 1 per 1.
1 to 1. And do we know approximately the height of the existing trees in the parking lot vis-a-vis what trees they would be replaced with? Like if these are 20 feet tall, do we have a 10-foot tall tree?
Typically with large mature trees, we require either a 48-inch box replacement, some cases 36-inch.
Okay. All right. So total number of trees, they will be the same, perhaps slightly smaller than what's existing there, but that the tree number would be maintained, right? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. I appreciate that. And Mr. Walker, Mr. Cottage, do you have anything else to add? I mean, we're going to ask you for an opportunity if you'd like to come up and make final comments later on. So you don't have to spill it all right now if you want to hold on to it.
Sure. I think we're good.
Are you? Okay. All right. Thanks, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks much.
Okay. You're welcome to take a seat if you'd like. I think at this point, after that run, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to the Planning Commission meeting of Monday, October 23rd, 2023. We are in the middle of item number 2, right before public comment portion. So I'll go ahead and move it to the public comment portion of the meeting and ask if anyone in chambers wishes to speak to this item. All right, seeing none. Anna, do we have anyone online?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of the public hearing. And commissioners, do you have any further questions for the applicant?
Prior to the commissioner comments or questions, Commissioner Andretti, you'll have to explain your ex parte discussions and just during the meeting. Just a small.
Oh, sure.
I'll go ahead and open up the public comment portion so you can.
Sure. Yeah, I was just asking for some clarity just between the two images. Because it looks like in the existing parking on the left that, I don't know if the public can see it, but is what's existing. So they were explaining that they would be incorporating some of the, the box replacement for the 9 removals, incorporating some box planters in replacement for those that are being removed. I think that was it. So I was just asking for creative ways to keep as many trees as possible. But yeah.
Mr. Preziosi, is that sufficient for a response?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Andrade. Now I will go ahead and close the public comment portion of the public hearing and ask commissioners, do you have any further questions for the applicant? Starting with Commissioner Zick.
No questions. I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay. No, the public comment portion is closed. We have not closed the public hearing yet. Okay. Let's see. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
The mature trees are, some of them are up to 20 foot tall, and the 36-inch and 48-inch box trees are not mature trees.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair?
Yeah, about these trees, and sorry for not keeping up, but this is a very helpful thing you've put together on the screen here. I'm trying to figure out how you have 30 parking spaces in excess of what's required. And the only requirement is that, well, it's the width of the parking aisles, that's one thing, but it's also the size of some of those spaces. And I guess we're operating under the assumption, because there's too much to show here, that you can't, that just can't work with keeping those mature trees. Is there, at the end of these designs, that result in the loss of these trees, is the parking count way higher than the code requires?
It is higher than the code requirement of 114, yes.
Okay, so that sounds like a value judgment on your side to have more space. It sounds like the trees are being lost as a result of the decision to have more parking than required. Maybe that and the need to come up to code in terms of the mix of compact spaces. Can you help me understand is it all, is it one, is it some bit of both? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Not exactly.
So the reconfiguration of this lot to come up to code, that means widening parking aisles, that means changing the mix of standard, the ratio of compact to standard spaces. It just, what I'm trying to understand is how these, is the loss of these trees caused by, well, I guess there's different ways to go about this. We can't see every design possibility, but is it possible to save the trees and meet the code at the end of the day? Or are we losing these trees because you want more, you want 30 extra spaces? I guess I'm trying to figure out, is it your decision, or is it the code that's pushing? What's causing the loss of these trees? Is it your design decisions, or is it the city's code? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So, I mean, hypothetically, yes, you can reduce the parking lot to 114 of the code required and get rid of a bunch of parking spaces, but that just doesn't help the marketability of the office units. Like the owners are going to want to come in and get as much parking as possible. So of course, like having as much parking possible is my job as an architect, and to have this thing be as marketable as possible. So it is in our best interest to get the maximum stalls possible, as well as meet the standards. So you want to say something?
I would just also like to add, of this image that we've been reviewing this evening on the right side, it's the widening of the drive aisles that show those 6 trees that are red on the top, the center, and the bottom, the 2, 2, and 2. Because of the drive aisles need to be widened from the current 22 feet to 25 feet, those trees are right in the aisle, and those are the ones that are for sure, if we're widening these aisles, we'll have to go.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess you can reconfigure the parking so that like the diamond ones, which I didn't illustrate the diamonds on this particular graphic, but there's 6 diamond ones. I guess you can remove 6 stalls to keep those trees, but then you still have the other 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. You still have the other 6 at the bottom, the middle, and the top that are compromised because of the drive aisle.
Yeah, you understood my question. That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
And so I guess to some extent, it's kind of both. Like the drive aisles really create difficulty, but there's also the need for wanting more parking. Okay, that's what I wanted to understand. Mine was more of a technical question. I didn't mean to get in your business. I was trying to figure out. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. Anyone else? Questions of the applicant? All right, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. Unless you have any further closing comments.
No, I just wanted to thank everybody for your time, and Commissioner John, thank you for all of your conversations with us this morning. We hope for approval, of course, with the caveat that we are to update the map on the staff report for 12 units instead of the 11.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. You're welcome to have a seat. Commissioners, do you have any further questions for staff? All right, Vice Chair Toller.
Okay. So, sorry. Does Commissioner Vivar want to go first? I will get my thoughts.
Sure, I can go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. So the drive aisles in question here tonight, that's the width of space between parking spots. That's correct? Not necessarily the drive aisle of cars coming into the site, right?
Correct. The conversation this evening has revolved around the drive aisles between these two rows of parking spaces.
Right. And then so it was staff's conversations with the applicant that led to, I guess, the widening of those aisles, right? That's a staff recommendation, right? That those drive aisles be widened?
The condo conversion projects require conformance with all aspects of the zoning code
Sure.
except the FAR, unless a deviation is granted. So as staff has recommended, we recommend that a deviation not be granted, and then therefore the parking would have to be updated as you see on the right side of your screen.
Sure. Okay, so I believe you mentioned this earlier, but you said that if the language of the parcels were 12 airspace units being created as opposed to 11, your analysis of parking, traffic, etc., would essentially have the same conclusions. Is that correct?
Correct. The land use analysis would not change.
So possibly, so if the Planning Commission wished to make that clarification of the 11 parcel units to 12 parcel units, that does not affect staff's conclusions, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's it from me, Mr. Yeager. Mr. Chairman, that's it.
All right.
Back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Anyone else wish to ask staff? Vice Chair.
Our drive aisle requirements are uniform across the aisle, the standard dimension. I don't know what it is.
So it changes with the angle of the parking spaces. The dimension here in question, it's not a two-way drive aisle is required to be 20 feet. What the issue is here is the backup distance, which is required to be 25 feet from each parking stall.
And so it looks like some of these streets are in what would be like a bulb out kind of thing, like maybe not conflicting with back out areas. So I'm trying to understand if that is intended to be, if that minimum dimension is just a straight shot across, or if there can be some design creativity to the same we do with traffic calming and maybe have a planter stick out into an aisle. Do we have any thoughts on that?
We would have to take a look at a plan submitted, but as long as the drive aisle width is maintained and the backup distance is maintained for each parking stall, then if these bulb outs, as you say, don't interfere with them, then they could stay.
Okay. Commissioner Zick asked about condition number 13, if that would be the only one, if striking that would be a way that the commission could move forward without the requirement that they revise the parking lot. Can you repeat your answer? I remember the question, but I started doing math.
Yeah, so there would be two things that would need to happen. One, striking condition number 13, and then two, providing the finding for the deviation.
Okay. And what specifically in a motion would have to be included to resolve this thing about the 12th airspace, 12th parcel?
As long as the motion indicates that the findings be updated to include the 12 units.
Okay, it's not buried in 3 conditions or anything. Okay. Lastly, Director Dropkin, you mentioned the kind of the precedent that it might set if the commission in a way seemed to disregard the letter of the law, the letter of the law and the integrity of the code and the process. Can you maybe just real quick, just expound on the logic of staff's recommendation and what that precedent would mean?
Sure. I think that there's a code provision that requires a finding to be made, and there's certain terms that are used in it. One of the specific terms that is used in it is the impracticable. You know, it took staff to go back to English class a little bit and find out what that is, that it's not impractical, which is like Chair mentioned. It is a clearly defined word of infeasible or unfeasible or not possible. So that was staff's interpretation of that finding to be made. And in our minds, Chris and I had some discussions about this early on. I compared it to another project. We compared it to another project where the site wasn't parked adequately, and it was significantly less parking than was allowed. But it acted great, fine. There was no issues with it. That would be a situation, tearing down a building in our staff's consideration would be impracticable. So, but to create more parking, that is. But otherwise, this didn't seem to hit the bar for staff. So of impracticable. And it's mostly, like I said, just to mention, is the lot is mostly designed with parking. So, and they're overparked. So there's a lot of thresholds that staff had to meet, and at least in our decision in that finding, that we couldn't. But again, that doesn't mean that the Planning Commission could not, or could.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Does anyone else wish to ask questions of staff before we move on?
It's just really quick. It's just looking at the comparison of the two and the aisles.
Just your mic real quick.
Sorry. It's just like 3 inches, right? The existing has between the two rows, says 22, and then it turns to 25 in the new aisle, right? So it's just 3 inches or so.
The 3 feet.
3 feet.
3 feet, excuse me. Okay. I guess this would be more a question for the applicant. If they would, I guess my question for the applicant would be if they would consider, what is the feasibility for them to reconsider or redesign the parking lot to keep as much green space?
Well, first off, I might want to ask that question of staff to see if it's even possible to redesign certain sections that you might be looking at, and then ask them if they're willing to do that. So you're welcome to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He said.
So, hey, Chris, help me when I need it. He'll jump in. We haven't looked at this plan before, the plan to your right. We haven't seen it. Our proposal was to condition that the applicant would come back with an appropriate design. And again, like I mentioned before, we're sure that they could. As far as meeting the removal of parking spaces and the preservation of trees, I also think that there's probably a good possibility that they can do that, especially considering that they're over 15 trees, even with the right redesign, the right side redesign. 15 trees, 15 parking spaces. I'm getting confused, I apologize. So they're all the same to me now. Anyway, so with that said, your question is a good one. Unfortunately, it's not a good place for staff to be to design a project and to try to design a project at a public hearing too. So, but as far as staff going back and working with the applicant, absolutely, we could do that. So, and showing them what kind of potential flexibilities that staff could account for working with the traffic division. They've got some concerns about the parking being eliminated and they're having some issues with use. We have plenty of flexibilities in the parking code where we can do a parking study that shows that one use isn't as impactful as another. We've approved dozens of those since I've been here in the last couple of years. So there's lots of things that we could go back and discuss with the applicant, but designing the project is not one of our fortes.
Just real quick, Vice Chair, does that answer what you need? Okay, Vice Chair.
So I just want to confirm that an approval tonight wouldn't lock in any specific design. It's just that one condition, the design of the parking layout is what I'm talking about. And the number of trees gone, this isn't a design review, nothing in the packet. This is all gonna go through the regular plan check and everything. The only thing that we're approving is in relation to all these things we're talking about, is condition number 13, whether a deviation can be to not have to bring that up to code or not. But the design itself isn't being locked in right now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Klepak.
Chime in. So I just want to clarify, I've heard a lot about, and I'm an environmentalist, I love trees, but I've heard a lot about number of trees and possible trade-offs with the appearance of the building and the facilities. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about codes, we're really getting down to human safety and human health and safety, right? And so that's with the requested parking revision, we're really getting at that intent of the code is to protect people that are in the parking lot. So I just want to make sure we're not prioritizing trees over human safety. I didn't have a question in that. I'm just stating that.
Sounds good observation, Commissioner. All right, anyone else? All right, seeing none, I will now close the public hearing, and I will, if you could clear the board, please, Anna. Thank you. I'll go, if you could please clear the board, Anna.
She is.
And I haven't asked for a motion yet, Commissioner Zick. So if you could please clear the board, Anna. Thank you. I'll go ahead and make the motion to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, or CEQA Guidelines 15301, Class 1 existing facilities, and 15315, Class 15 minor land divisions, and approve planning application 23-12 and tentative parcel map 2023-167, subject to conditions of approval, and any accompanying language to account for the 12th unit. And I'm willing to hear additional thoughts if anything needs to be included here, but that's my motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Andrade. I'll go ahead and speak to the motion in saying that, like staff had said repeatedly, granting a variance to the parking here would set a dangerous precedent for what we want to do moving forward. Our job here is, as always, to conform to the code, and granting what the applicant is asking of us would put us in a rather dangerous spot. Now, I don't think that that's their intention, but that's just the potential outcome there. When I hear about reasons for granting that variance, I've heard from the applicant resources and attractiveness, aesthetics, but I haven't heard anything that would be impracticable in terms of what as far as the project goes. It can be done, and that is what the code requires of us, is to make sure that, well, if it's impracticable, then okay, we can consider that. But in this particular case, it seems like it's more impractical, but that isn't something that we need to necessarily weigh in our decision, because the outcome of doing otherwise would put us in that dangerous position of setting a new precedent that we don't want to be setting. So I think with that, that's my motion. Commissioner Andrade, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, only to add that, again, if there's that opportunity to keep as much within the safety that is required for safe parking for everyone would be great, and maintaining as much green space that exists.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this, this motion? Vice Chair.
Yeah, I'll speak real quick. Thank you. So this was kind of a tough one for me. I'll be supporting the motion. I could see the other side of this. Like, it's impractical to revise this parking lot because you'd have to tear down a building. Well, you'd have to tear down a tree. It's kind of the same logic, especially big trees like that. And you know, big shade trees do kind of are related to that finding of. Well, I won't read it again, but anyway, I can see the other side. But as the chair said, the code is the code, and I think it's very important that we protect the integrity of that and don't let it slip. There's been plenty of projects where I've had to hold my nose and vote on, but it's what the code says, and we got to keep the keep respecting the process and respecting the rules everybody's playing by. One other thing that tipped me over, I mean, obviously these are mature trees, but it is a parking lot. These aren't street trees somewhere in our like walkable part of town or anything. So there is that to think of. And lastly, there's 30 extra spots. So there's 30 extra spots. So it's not that the code is the blood of these trees is on the city code's hands. It's the applicant that wants way more parking that's required. So hopefully the applicant can be creative and maybe striking a balance, kind of some sort of win-win and compromise, and not take out as many trees as maybe shown on those pictures, and investing some of that money towards the aesthetics up front. And also, like I said, you know, maybe there's some wiggle room in making some bulb outs there, and you know, we're widening aisles, and I don't know if that contributes to pedestrian safety, but maybe those bulb outs would, you know, compensate for whatever doing that does. So I'm in support of the motion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. Anyone else? Commissioner Zick.
So I will not be supporting the motion as is. We spent a lot of time talking about trees, and I'll get back to that in a minute. I think what the applicant is intending to do with the building is fantastic. Creating 12 units, fantastic. Upgrading the major building systems, fantastic. Providing ownership opportunities for smaller sized businesses that aren't in the market for 20,000 square feet or 40,000 square feet, I think is fantastic. With regard to their request for deviation on parking, I think that is a reasonable request. I also know that no precedent would be set by granting that. We've dealt with this in the past where there have been requests for deviations, and questions have been raised by us whether that would establish a precedent for future projects. The answer has always been no. Each project stands on its own merits. And in terms of the merits of this project, I think a deviation would be warranted. I'm always reluctant to design things from the dais, trying to reconfigure how the parking could be done, where we could you know, try to save a tree, but maybe knock off 4 parking stalls that we didn't really need to meet a count. I'm reluctant to do that. The applicant has spent plenty of time on this. This parking configuration isn't new. This isn't an untested configuration. This is a configuration that has existed since the building was built since the ADA parking was updated in 2003. We, in the city, value mature trees. Some might argue we go too far in valuing mature trees. There's a commission that deals with requests by private property owners that want to remove a tree from their property, in front of their property, a city parkway. So it's a city tree. 9 times out of 10, they're told no, it's a mature tree. Well, I'll give 3 trees back to the city. You can plant them somewhere else, 3-to-1 ratio. Nope, the tree's healthy, we're not removing it. We go out of our way to keep mature trees. Somebody's developing a property that has a mature tree on it, and we go out of our way to try to find a way for them to design around that one mature tree. This is 9 mature trees. I think there's a significant public benefit to retaining these. We've been directed, our attention has been directed to a word that none of us, I would wager, have ever used in talking or writing. And that's this word, impracticable. It almost looks like it's a spelling error, but nope, it's a real word. We're to be guided by this word that none of us use. And if you look this word up in the Oxford Dictionary, it does refer to this concept of impossibility, but it also provides, as dictionaries tend to do, similar words. Unfeasible, inoperable, not worth considering, unachievable, unattainable, unrealizable, impractical, undoable. Is it physically impossible without compromising the integrity of the overall project? The integrity of the project. Implementing features that result in conformance? I think there's room here to argue, as I am arguing, that there is a significant public benefit to retaining a parking lot as it's configured, which has served this building for a long time and includes mature trees that we as a city have gone out of our way many times to try to preserve. Reconfiguring this and reducing the number of parking stalls, that's a rarity here. Usually a developer comes in and they don't have enough parking. And then we get into this whole discussion about trying to rationalize, well, should we allow less parking than the code requires? And then we jump through hoops and we come up with ways to argue that, yeah, it's a public benefit, public convenience, shared parking, the business's time of use, and all those are legal and rational arguments. But here we're making an argument to reduce the number of parking, and in order to do that, get rid of mature trees. Sorry, I just don't see the logic in that. For that reason, I make a substitute motion that we find the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality CEQA 15301 existing facilities. We approve the planning application and the tentative parcel map so long as it reflects the 12 parcels that we've discussed, and that we grant the deviation for parking as it is a significant public benefit to retain the existing configuration with the mature trees. That is my substitute motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Zick. Is there a second for that substitute motion? All right, seeing none, that motion fails for a lack of a second. Does anyone else wish to speak to the original motion? Commissioner Rojas? Commissioner Bivar?
Sure, I will. I think with as oftentimes happens with difficult projects we look at up here, I think that many of my colleagues bring up good points, and I don't think that they're necessarily mutually exclusive. I think the conversation about trees is one thing, and the conversation about parking is another in that we have to balance various aspects of a project, and I think achieving that balance is sometimes not easy. I think as Commissioner Klepak mentioned, we should keep safety of humans above tree health, as we do have to make that finding of the that a project is not materially detrimental to the health, welfare, and safety and injurious to the public. There is, of course, reasoning behind the idea that getting rid of parking could potentially, again, get rid of the trees, but in order to meet the code requirements, and the code requirements are based on design vehicles, and those expected design vehicles to utilize that would be utilizing the site. I work at the city of LA reviewing plans all the time, and occasionally there are situations in which you possibly are able to strike some kind of a middle ground with things. It's not necessarily always a black or white situation, providing the required width or not providing it. And none of the findings or none of the staff presentation tonight mentioned that there have been collisions on site. However, we also have heard that the site is 50% occupied. Whether this will be a full parking lot, it's probably not going to happen. But if it did, would there be the potential for collisions with the smaller space, with smaller drive aisle width? Possibly, and Commissioner Toller did bring up the idea: would this be safe for pedestrians to widen the driveway width? And I would argue yes, because you have more of a space as a vehicle to look at any oncoming pedestrians and the other vehicles. So I think the project is okay. I think what we're trying to achieve here with the ownership units is great. I'm glad that we at least agree on the 12 parcels, because I think that was important to clear up. But as for parking, I rest assured that our traffic engineering staff at the city will do their job in reviewing the site plan, and we really shouldn't be getting too hung up on the site plan up here. So I trust in our staff to do a good job in their final reviews, and so I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Commissioner Klepak, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I'll just add that I think this is a really fantastic project. I love to see ownership opportunities. I love splitting up so it's not all or nothing, to have a more dynamic and diverse set of uses in the building. And I really appreciate the cafe that will be open to the public, and I will also be supporting the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Klepak. I'll go ahead and just make an additional comment to the applicants. I think this is a wonderful idea. I'm really enthusiastic about what you're trying to do here. Don't let all the commentary that we had tonight, let you think otherwise. We're very supportive of what you're trying to do here. And we're also trying to balance out the positions that we have, which is to follow the law and to follow the code. That's why we're put here, because certain people on city council trust us. I totally agree with Commissioner Klepak in that, by and large, this board is very supportive of ownership opportunities for a variety of reasons, and you are providing that for this community, giving people the opportunity to buy in and have equity and actually create wealth in a different way that actually means something really tangible here in Costa Mesa. With parking and trees was kind of the target of tonight's discussion, right? And I think for me, in making this motion, I'm confident that any potential loss of trees is mitigated through, additional trees being planted on site, albeit smaller ones, more than likely. But that this is a good compromise across the board, which is why I made the motion. But I don't want you to think that just because we're not granting the variance, that it's somehow a reflection on you guys or anything. It's really just to keep to our code, okay? All right, so with that, Anna, if we could call the question, please. Thank you.
That motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you very much, Anna. That decision is final unless appealed to City Council within 7 days. Good luck, gentlemen. Thank you. All right. For the two other gentlemen in chambers who've been waiting all night, Anna, if you please read the title for public hearing item number 3.
Public hearing item number 3. Planning application 23-11 and tentative parcel map 23-03 for a common interest development consisting of two-story single-family dwelling unit condominiums at 161 Cecile Place. Please note we have not received public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
All right, thank you, Anna. Any ex parte on this? All right, no.
None to report.
None, and none for me either. And I will now turn it over to Mr. Aldana to present the item. Mr. Aldana. Are we having some technical stuff? Yeah. Okay.
One minute.
Yeah. If you think it's going to take a little longer, we'll go ahead and take a commercial break. Or a Fig Newton break, whichever.
We'll hear from our sponsors.
Yeah, audio room, let's go ahead and just turn off for a few minutes while we're figuring this out. We'll see you in just a few minutes. Welcome back to the Planning Commission meeting of October 23rd, 2023. Call the meeting back to order and turn it over to Mr. Aldana to present the item.
Good evening, Chair Arith and Commissioners. My name is Christopher Aldana. I'm an Assistant Planner here at the City of Costa Mesa Planning Department. The project site is located south of Cecil Place between Eldon Avenue and Orange Avenue. The site consists of one parcel totaling 8,288 square feet. The property is zoned R2MD, multifamily residential medium density, and has a general plan land use designation of medium density residential MDR. The R2MD zoning district is intended to promote the development of multifamily rentals as well as ownership opportunities. The property is surrounded by similar R2MD zone properties. Until recently, the site was developed with 2 single-story homes, which have since been demolished. The applicant submitted a development review application in 2022 for the redevelopment of 2 residential units on a single lot. The Costa Mesa Municipal Code allows multifamily residential units in the R2MD zoning district. Because the subject project included new development and proposed second stories, the proposal required approval of a development review application. Per code, new second-story development is subject to the city's residential design guidelines, which include specific design standards and neighbor noticing requirements. On December 22nd, 2022, a development review staff report was prepared by staff, and notice was circulated to the neighbors, and the 2-unit development was subsequently approved. The applicant designed the homes in compliance with the standards for a common interest development, with the intention to obtain discretionary review for a subdivision approval, the tentative parcel map, at a later date. Since that time, the applicant has obtained building permits and the 2 new units are under construction and near completion. The applicant recently applied for design review for the Planning Commission consideration of a common interest development. If approved, planning application PA 2311 and PM 2303, which is the tentative parcel map, would allow the aforementioned 2 units to be sold for individual ownership as condominiums. The applicant is requesting approval of a tentative parcel map and a common interest development consisting of 2 attached 2-story single-family dwelling units on 1 lot with ancillary common spaces. A common interest development allows each unit to be owned or sold independently. Ancillary spaces such as common areas and landscaping would be maintained under common ownership and subject to CC&Rs. The orange areas above highlight the common space areas. The yellow areas are the units. The green areas are the new 2-car garages, and the dark blue area north of the garage are the driveways. A tentative parcel map is required to convert the existing lot into residential common interest development. The city's applicable tentative parcel map provisions are indicated in Article 4 parcel maps of the city zoning code. The findings for the approval of a parcel map are stipulated in Costa Mesa Municipal Code Section 13. The proposed common interest development is in compliance with the city's parcel map provisions, and the required findings are provided within the staff report. The tentative parcel map has been reviewed by Public Works Department and meets all department requirements at this time. As proposed, the use of the site and density will remain 2 residential units. No physical changes are proposed to the previously approved development on the site, and the proposed common interest development application would result only in the potential future ownership opportunities. The existing building complies with the applicable Costa Mesa municipal codes for common interest developments and design standards. Each unit is also designed with a 2-car garage and provides 2 uncovered parking stalls, pursuant to Costa Mesa Municipal Code parking requirements for common interest developments. The red box highlighted within the site plan shows the development envelope. As illustrated on plans, the project adheres to all setback requirements. The elevation and design of the development was approved in December of 2022 under Development Review 2202 and meets all residential design guidelines, including compliance with maximum building height of 27 feet, offsetting and building projection guidelines. Furthermore, the home provides a variety in building height and form. The elevations incorporate multiple building planes and offsets and includes a patio cover and enhancement of exterior openings such as the rear glass patio doors shown in the slide above, which are compliant with residential design guidelines. Included into the CUP are specific conditions of approval pertaining to common interest developments. Condition of approval number 9 requires that prior to parcel map recordation, the applicant shall provide the conditions, covenants, and restrictions, the CCNRs, to the Development Service Director and City Attorney Office for review. The CCNRs must be in the form and substance acceptable to and shall be approved by the Development Service Director and City Attorney's Office. The CCNRs shall contain provisions requiring the maintenance of Property Owners Association effectively manage parking and contract with a towing service to enforce the parking regulations. The CCNRs shall also contain provisions related to use, preservation, and maintenance of the common areas in perpetuity by the Maintenance Association. The CCNRs and Articles of Incorporation and bylaws of the Property Owners Association shall reflect the conditions of approval included herein. The CCNR shall be submitted for review by the Planning Division to conform common use and maintenance of all parking spaces, driveway, and landscaping will continue. Condition of approval number 10 requires that the parcel map shall be recorded prior to the sale of any unit. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt and approve the project subject to the conditions of approval. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Aldona. I appreciate it. Commissioners, do you have any questions of staff? Vice Chair?
Yeah, is there a reason that this is being divided as a condo and not just fee simple?
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, is there a reason this is being condoized and not just fee simple? The land itself isn't being divided and.
So with a fee simple or a lot, essentially a change in lot or division in lot is what you're suggesting. There would have to be a minimum lot size.
Okay.
And wouldn't comply with that. There are some avenues by splitting it with some of the state provisions that allow for some divisions. I can't think of the exact parameters that would be allowed right now because I didn't look at it from that perspective. So it probably could be done that way. You could talk to the applicant, probably better question for him or.
But it's not like small lot subdivision.
No, this is just this is an airspace subdivision.
Yeah, but it wouldn't qualify for the small lot subdivision.
No,
standards.
not this one.
Okay. And okay, that's all for now. That was my only question.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Anyone else? Commissioner Bavar.
Yeah. So thank you for your presentation. So this is not a lot, or this is not subdividing land, right? Only the airspace. Okay.
Correct, Commissioner.
So there was something in your presentation about a contract with the towing company. Does that have to be in the CCNRs?
It typically is in case someone, an uninvited guest parks and they automatically know who to call in case they have to get that vehicle removed. The standard language for CCNRs is usually something that the applicant hires an attorney to form, and then our attorney reviews. So they all differ, but it is a good tool to have in case you happen to need a tow truck. You know exactly who to call. Everybody can rely on that document.
And so the HOA fees would go towards maintaining that contract with a particular towing company?
Well, the HOA fees would go to maintenance for the landscaping. HOA fees can be allocated for anything really, for roofing. Every 5-10 years you need a new roof.
Of course.
If you didn't buy a steel roof, paint, So there's a wide variety of items that those fees can be, used for, but it's really up to their homeowners association and what they vote for periodically.
Right. So the owners of these 2 units wouldn't have their own individual, say, like garden space outside, right?
They actually do. So
Okay.
the entire, so if I go back to the,
But they don't technically own it, right?
they don't own anything outside of the walls. So they own the airspace, but not the actual land.
So the garden area is just, I guess, for theirs to use, but they don't technically own it. That's basically how it works, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else. Thank you, Mr. Aldana. I appreciate it. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing and ask the applicant to come forward, if you would, sir. You're welcome to go to either podium. And if you would, please state your name or your names for the record. Let us know if you've read the staff report and the conditions of approval and if you agree to them.
My name is Josh Martinez, and I'm here with Jack Heron. He's one of the managing members of the property.
Josh is the architect involved, and I'm, the property is owned by an LLC. I'm one of the managing members of the LLC, and also the builder on the job.
All right, thank you. And also, have you read the conditions of approval and do you agree to them?
We've read those, yes.
We have read.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Heron, and especially thank you for your patience after item number 2. So we definitely appreciate that. Floor is yours if you'd like to make a short presentation.
Awesome. Again, my name is Josh Martinez. I'm the project designer for the proposed 2-story residential units at 161 Cecil Place. My project team and I would like to express our gratitude to the Planning Commission, the City of Costa Mesa planning staff, and especially Christopher Aldana here, and the community for the feedback and assistance in our proposed development. Our project team and I began this project study in February 2022. We worked extensively with a series of planning staff members, and including Christopher here as well. Our first step was to walk through the existing neighborhood and observe local architectural style and character. We took notes on traffic patterns, zoning regulatory insights, and site specifics, allowing the project team to identify key design considerations and carefully integrate a proposed development that harmonizes with the local aesthetics. The proposed 2-unit development you see here today is an effective solution to long-term planning and a beneficial way to continue new housing supply. The design efficiently uses the available land and increases the housing options for the community. Paired with today's building code compliance and life safety measures, the new development helps protect the community and public confidence. In conclusion, the design effectively provides a positive impact on economic growth and serves the needs of a vibrant city and aspirations of the Costa Mesa residents. Thank you.
Jack Heron. I want to say that I think that this project is a fine example of private and public cooperation. We started with our technical understanding of the heights and building envelopes and everything. And we gave a proposed building. We brought it into staff. We worked over it many times and evolved and evolved. And now what we have is a building that has coordinated embellishments all around the building. It's not like you just have straight sides. Every aspect of this building has interesting, beautiful elements that go with all the other elements. This building is designed to be like 2 homes. Josh and I have extensive experience in Corona del Mar where we build these tight little units and they're just crunched down and there's no space. And we're always like, God, if we can ever get a decent sized lot, we know how to make these areas so livable. And so what we did here is put a common wall down the middle. That wall has an airspace and then 2 walls, and those have insulation. Then we have what's called resilient channels, which create additional airspace. And then we put a special kind of drywall on those walls that are equivalent to 9 layers of drywall on each side for sound. And then toward the outside, we have windows appropriately laid out. So, for example, the dining area has a beautiful view of windows coming out. And when you come into the house, there's a 2-story vaulted element for the staircases. And then as you look toward the back, the rooms are sort of like, what you want to do is create like a funnel effect where it comes bigger and more grand as you go back. And we have retractable doors all the way across the back. And we have patios that are covered. They're large patios. We have TNG in the ceilings. They're about almost 360 square feet each, and then open onto a yard. And there was this video up here of one that showed the trees all around, and then the trees came up in the middle. I don't know if that could be put back up for you. There it is. And so what happens here is that we put these trees in to give privacy to everyone in this house and to the neighbors. So no one's looking over, and you can see in the very rear, there's a fence with double trees. So when you're in this unit, you do not see your neighbors. And from the second floor, we designed the patio covers to be such that you can't see your neighbor's yard from there. It's private all the way around. And in the front, we have a gated area where we have utility areas and so forth. Upgraded parking with all the strips of grass and so forth, and trees across the front. I heard you guys talking about trees. Said, well, we have good trees. And so we put a white vinyl fence around the entire perimeter, and that's a very beautiful, like a bow wrapping up. It's white, low maintenance, almost no maintenance. So, and in these, for example, I just want to go over this because I'm very proud of this building. When you come in, for example, you'll see that double vaulted staircase. We have a downstairs bedroom with powder, walk-in pantries, large kitchen with an 8.5-foot long island by 4 feet, spacious dining area, and a very large family room with a fireplace. We used electric fireplaces because they're just the best now. They have lighting and displays, and they look like real fire. They're fantastic. And then retractable doors, you can go right on out to the back. So you have this big open space volume feel. Upstairs, we have 3 more bedrooms. All of them have their own closets and baths, and there's a recreational area for those occupants. We figured like if they had younger people, and a large master bedroom. As I said, from the master bedroom windows looking down, you cannot look at your neighbor's yard. So we made every effort to make privacy out of this. And the front elevations are really appreciated by the neighbors. Very often they come by and tell me how much they like this building. One of them liked it so much he wants to go into business with me. Don't know him that well. But I believe this meets every technical aspect. It's very high-end product and high quality, and with many elements that create the latest style and design, where we have grass and stone and siding and stucco and roof of various materials, and in the front, those rakes have metal standing seam roofs. So it's a beautiful building, and I think it's going to be a great addition to the neighborhood. I know the person at the corner of Eldon and Cecil Place built his own home a few years back. He did a magnificent job. It's a beautiful big house. And he said, well, finally, we're starting to get some homes now coming into the area that, we'd always envisioned when we put our house here. And I do agree because, we should be proud of this city. Look at its proximity to the ocean, a few miles up, freeway close, lots of shopping. And I believe that this area over here should just rise in its quality also. The one thing that we did see as we looked over into those down around 16th Street and so forth, we saw a lot of two on a lot, two houses, and they were sort of twisted and turned. But we take people around to do market surveys, and the one thing that everybody said is there's no yard, there's no yard. Well, we made sure we have nice big yards and they're viewable from everywhere, yet still maintaining privacy throughout. So that's my presentation on that. Any questions? I'll be here.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Heron and
You're
Mr.
quite
Martinez. Appreciate it. Commissioners, questions, starting with Commissioner Vivar.
Yeah, I missed it, but was it 2 or 3 rooms per unit?
It's 4 bedrooms and 4 baths.
Oh, well, okay. Do you happen to have an idea, what these might go for? Just curious.
It's hard to say, in this economy.
Sure.
It's kind of hard to say, but we've looked around at single-family dwellings, and we expect to be selling below them.
What, sorry?
We expect to be selling for prices below single-family dwellings.
Right.
Because they're still condos, however you look at it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, I appreciate your presentation, and I can clearly see you're very passionate about your project.
Yes,
so
I am.
Thank you for presenting us this, and
All right.
yeah, appreciate it. That's it for Mr.
Yes.
Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Vice Chair.
Can I ask why you didn't make them, okay, never mind.
You got the answer.
Facing. That
I
was
know.
that's
Yes.
simple, but I guess what I was going, would you have done that if it had been an option, or did you not do that just because it wouldn't have met the code?
Well, let me just bring one thing up, and since you brought that, because I like Costa Mesa a lot, and I would like to do some more building here. You have a small lot ordinance, and my feeling is a lot of work went into that. But what I don't think went into it was to look around at the lotting pattern. That calls for example, in this lot, a 5-foot setback, another 5-foot setback, another 5 foot, and another 5. Well, there's no room for the house. We had originally proposed 2 separate houses. They would be condos. We weren't subdividing the lot, but they were totally 2 separate, and they were separated by 3-foot side yards with a fence down the middle. We're used to that in Corona Del Mar. It's every one of them just about. And we thought that would be terrific. But staff was concerned that we weren't going to quite go with the 5-yard, have 10 feet in the middle. And so if we went with the 10 feet in the middle, then people lose the quality of living in their house. They're in a congested little old building, and I frankly like to sell something everybody's going to love and enjoy, family over at Christmases, and they don't have to squeeze around each other and so forth. And so that's why we didn't go with this. Now, in the future, if you would entertain on a lot like this, 3 feet on each, so a 6 foot, I could find these lots and build some beautiful places. They're still condos, but they look and feel and operate like single families. And one last thing I want to point out. In the open space here, they are designated at certain junctures as exclusive use. So one neighbor doesn't just come over. But in the CCNRs, it also allows for, let's suppose that Unit B, somebody crashed into the garage door and they didn't want to ever fix it. Well, A could make sure they had the right to go do it. But on the other hand, you have everything for A on one side, everything for B on the other. And with that one little idea I just mentioned, if you had 6 feet, which is, we're very used to that, it's a highly market acceptable idea. You could have two houses on this lot, and they'd only be 1 foot difference in the width of them, which we could figure out how to make those floor plans work in a highly acceptable way. And that's just something I would like to throw out there for anything in the future. And maybe that's something staff would like to look into just a little bit too. Because we like to give quality living to the people who buy these. You know, quality living. When they're in this house at Christmas time, for example, they're going to have a sitting area in the dining. They're going to have stools up underneath the island of the kitchen. They're not going to be bumping up against each other, turning sideways. You can walk all the way around the dining table. When the chairs are back without having to get somebody to squeeze, let you out. All these things, we figure them down to the 2 or 3 inches, believe me, that promote quality of living can be put into these buildings with a small little technical adjustment. And it wouldn't be a lot split for 2 complete fee simple ownerships. It would be still a condo, but it would have all the for everyday use. And then I feel you would have one more aspect. Condo living with HOAs is what maintains these buildings and front footages. You know, you go throughout Irvine, and that's why that city is always maintained, because they have association one after another. And therefore, you don't have one building that gets deteriorated and the other one's kept up, or somebody else doesn't do theirs because next door neighbor didn't. So that's just one thing I would like to kind of put out for consideration for something future. I'll come in here with another, talk to staff, and that'll be it. Okay? Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Toller. Anyone else? Commissioner Klepak.
Question. So this is a homeowners association with 2 parties in it, correct? Yeah. That's okay. So everything is either unanimous or a draw. How do you resolve conflicts?
You know, there is an entire city portion of Newport Beach called Corona del Mar. My son-in-law lives in one of the units I built. They get along. That's how they do it. They just get along. They have a mutual interest. And when you give people these separate areas at their exclusive right, they don't feel like anybody's leaning on them and so forth. But where these really come up are in the fronts of these buildings. Everybody wants to maintain the building looking nice, and they have somebody to help share that cost with them. Yeah. So hundreds and hundreds, we built, I don't know how many down there. Josh has drawn at least 100 or more of those houses. And I'd often wondered that myself, but it has never been a problem with anybody, you know?
What if one party is more irresponsible than the other? They have a kid that's always flooding, you know, putting stuff down the toilet and causing floods, or running into the garage door, and the other guy doesn't. Like, at least with an association, you have more people to spread the costs amongst, but here it's kind of...
Well, these have separate sewer lines. Okay. So if they stop up their toilet, they're the first ones to pay the consequences for it.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Klepak. Anyone else? All right. Seeing none. All right. Mr. Martinez, Mr. Herron, thank you very much. You're welcome to take a seat for the time being. We'll call you up in just a few minutes. Now open the meeting for public comments. I don't see anyone in chambers who can or would speak to this item. Anna, do we have anyone online?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of the public hearing. And commissioners, do you have any further questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none. Does the applicant have any closing comments that you wish to make? No? That's okay. All right, commissioners, do you have any further questions for staff? All right, seeing none, now close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Motion made by Commissioner Vivar. What is your motion?
Oh, yeah, I think we need help again.
Okay.
But I'd like to make a motion to approve planning application subject to conditions, the conditions of approval.
Okay. Do you mind if I read it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. This is to recommend to find that the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA per CEQA Guidelines, Section 15315, Class 15, minor land divisions, and approved planning application 23-11 in the tentative parcel map 23-03, subject to the conditions. Is that your motion?
Yes, that is.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Rojas. Do you wish to speak to your item, Commissioner Vivar?
Yeah, wow, this is really interesting. I mean, I know we've looked at small lot subdivisions up here for 2 lots, but I hadn't even considered the idea that people could build something like this where it's essentially 2 condos in a lot like this that function like single-family homes, essentially. I mean, personally, well, I think that oftentimes we are building bigger homes, whereas families are getting smaller. So I think that ideally we would prioritize having smaller units, even that could house multiple families. But however, I think that this will still definitely provide an entry to the housing market and property ownership to people who might otherwise not be able to purchase a full-on single-family home in the city of Costa Mesa, because again, I don't know if anybody looks at the listing websites, but properties in Costa Mesa are pretty much $1 million and above, and low end $1 million-ish. So I don't think this would be a cheap property by any means, but definitely a lot more affordable than some of the other properties that you might find here, closer to $2 million. So I think this is a great project. I wish we'd see more of these, and I do appreciate your passion on sharing with us your ideas on housing. I do recommend you reach out to City Council as well. I think they may be interested to hear about them. Yeah, that's my motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vivar. Commissioner Rojas, do you wish to speak to the motion?
It's great design, guys. I like it. Thank you very much for bringing it in.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, do you wish to speak to the motion? Commissioner Klepak?
I would just like to echo the thoughts about, I like the idea of smaller units. I realize this project is already down the road, but it certainly could have had the potential to have 4 instead of 2. But that said, I will be voting to approve.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Zick? Okay, Commissioner Andrade? Vice Chair? All right, I'll, I guess, wrap it up. You had me at 8-foot by 4-foot island, and then and then everything else that followed. I can definitely sense your passion for this project and the eye for detail. Believe it or not, it actually reminds me a lot of my dad, who's a carpenter, and getting to work with him growing up and then through college and so forth. Just that passion for making something excellent. I could sense it when you were discussing it, Mr. Heron. And then beyond that, I mean, just looking at the renderings, they're beautiful. I agree with many of my fellow commissioners in that, home ownership opportunities are becoming much more disparate here in the city of Costa Mesa. And providing this for our community is something that we're in need of. People who can actually get into home ownership and create that traditional trajectory for wealth and generational wealth, if you will. Even if it's not the final stop, maybe it's the next stop up from maybe a really expensive rental unit that they have. They actually want to get into that million-ish kind of price point and then move up from there. It keeps people climbing up that ladder. And that's what I'm convinced through and through, and I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, that that's what we need here in this city. So I appreciate you looking at Costa Mesa, and I'll be supporting this project enthusiastically. So thank you. So Anna, if we could call the question.
That motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you, Anna. That decision is final unless appealed to the City Council within 7 days. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you. All right. That brings us to old business, new business, which we have neither. So we'll go ahead and start with departmental reports with Mr. Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No reports from Public Works. Thank you.
Okay.
Refer back to the chair.
Thank you. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Mr. Preziosi, do you have anything for us?
No report this evening, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Preziosi, and thank you for the commentary tonight on some of the legal aspects of the items. That was greatly appreciated. Appreciate that. All right. Director Drap.
I have a quick for Mr. Young. Wondering on any status on the Wilson Street crossing, crosswalk. We just wrapped up walking to school days down to the local elementaries. Wilson Street is still a very heavily trafficked area. Really make an ease for the local community there. You know, all the families that are on the other side of Wilson, on the ocean side of Wilson Street, Avocado Street, you know, that's highly condensed and populated area. So just getting access to the schools, to all the shopping centers that are on the other side of Wilson is just so critical. I mean, as I drive by, I tend to just stop for people because having to do that chicken run on Wilson Street when it's heavy traffic, it's just terrifying.
Correct. So Commissioner Andrade, the Public Works Department is well aware of the situation along Wilson Street. So we've contacted the contractor. There are some material delays in the delivery of what we're waiting for. This is called the electrical panel and the pedestal. Those are in short supply. However, it's our understanding that in the next couple of weeks it'll come in, and therefore we'll start expediting the process. Once the material comes in, then our contractor will have what it needs to take to install. So for the actual pedestal to come in, we're looking at 2 weeks, and after that, then we'll coordinate with the contractor to find the right time to actually do the install and the powering of the pedestal so that the hawk signal at that area will be in function. Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Yang. Director Drapkin.
Thank you, Chair Arthur. I don't have much tonight to discuss. I did want to bring up a few upcoming projects that we'll be seeing. Staff's been pretty busy, and we're working on some projects. Just a handful, for example. We have the cannabis ordinance revisit that we're targeting before the first of the year now. We were targeting around the first of the year, but now we're coming in before that. The inclusionary housing ordinance we're preparing, which is I'm going to offer the Planning Commission individual type study sessions so we can sort of have a one-on-ones with staff. It's a complicated issue, and I know that the commission's already been involved with the council at least on 2 occasions, at least one. Twice. And so this will be a helpful, hopefully, session to where you can ask questions and staff can explain different aspects of that ordinance that's going to be coming before you. We've got some outdoor dining proposals at a restaurant on 19th Street, which is coming. A larger fast food, Raising Cane's is coming pretty soon on Newport Boulevard near 16th Street. And also something that you suggested, I had a chance to work on the report earlier today, was the PC bylaws and the change of the day for the commission, which we're hoping that we can move to one of the days closer to the middle of the week.
Okay.
So, and that's it.
Wonderful. I'm glad you ended on that note because my intention tonight.
I had one quick question. I didn't know if this is a Public Works or for planning. When you mentioned the fast food joint, it reminded me of a huge kind of traffic issue that bottles up on the in and out on 19th Street. I'm sure that wasn't intentional to build it that way and to create that whole bottleneck that happens when people are trying to get in line for the drive-through. Is that something that we can look at, revisit, or I don't know which party would that be with?
You're specifically meaning that restaurant on In-N-Out or the newer one? That's
The in and out.
Oh.
I'm just saying, it reminded me when you mentioned fast food joints.
I don't know if it would be something that would be under the discretion of the planning commission to revisit. I think the answer to that would be no. If the council so decided for the planning commission, or if there was complaints, or if there was a revocation request, if there was a CP, that might be, but at this point, no.
So for the safety of that intersection and cars having to go on the opposite side of the street, like who would evaluate that?
The city's traffic division.
Traffic.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
That's a good point, though, Commissioner Andrade. I observe the same things because I work on 19th. And then I also know from a particular fast food restaurant that's right by the on-ramp on Harbor Boulevard and the freeway that it backs up there pretty much too. No, another one down by Mesa Verde.
I will add, there is a Raising Cane's by Mesa Verde as well, and it has that same effect. It's very popular, and it backs up onto Harbor all the time.
Yeah,
So it's a popular restaurant.
it is. But no, I appreciate you bringing that up, Director Dropkin. And I'm also glad that you ended on that note about changing the day of the week. What I wanted to do just for a quick second was to take a quick poll, and we're welcome to have a quick conversation about this, about what day of the week would work best for everyone if we did change. I'm inclined to say Wednesday because it's furthest away from a Monday holiday, and it's also furthest away from a Friday. If someone wanted to take Friday off and maybe leave Thursday night and get driving on that Friday. So Wednesday seems to come to mind. Tuesday is, as long as it's not falling on city council night, it could be every other, we could match them on Tuesdays, but I think they're planning on changing their meeting times as well, potentially. So does anyone have any thoughts?
Chair, I will note that as it currently stands, I work at the office in downtown LA. I work for the LA Department of Transportation, for anyone who doesn't know, and commute on every other Wednesday. The rumor is in January we may be coming in more. I would oppose Wednesday, but would be supportive of Tuesday or Thursday.
Tuesday or Thursday. Okay. Commissioner Klepak, do you have any thoughts? I know you have lots of meetings.
I know there is no perfect day, and things are in flux, so I will go with the majority.
Okay. Okay. And we're going to continue to talk about this. This is not dead set tonight. Commissioner Rojas?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to attend Wednesdays. I have other meetings that I attend on Wednesdays, but Tuesdays is fine. Mondays or Tuesdays is fine, but
Okay.
the rest of the week is not available.
So Thursdays are off?
Thursdays and Fridays are not available either.
Okay. All right. So Tuesday. Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Zick?
Do we get reports any earlier?
That's, I think, the intention behind getting to move this day is that we get the reports on that Thursday or more than likely Friday, and then we have a couple extra days to actually do the work that we need to do. That's the reason for this.
If there's a commitment for that, I can support it. If it's just an intention, then I'd be skeptical.
So that's a yes. Commissioner Andrade?
Thursdays would be a challenge, right?
Thursdays, okay. And Vice Chair?
Mondays and Tuesdays.
Mondays, Tuesdays. Sounds like Tuesdays are looking, I know, and that, yeah. And we don't have to decide tonight. I'll go with the flow of whatever, but I'm still holding out for Wednesday. All right. I know. Anyway, with that said, thank you, everyone. I appreciate just the quick back and forth, and we will adjourn to our next meeting. Good evening. Thanks for everything.